Chapter 980. Long Fu, do you have a way? After thinking for a while, Long Fu nodded in the end. Seeing Long Fu nod, Longao felt joy in his heart. Longao understood Long Fu very well. As long as Long Fu said he had a way, then there would definitely be a way. Master, if you want to awaken the two little fellows and restore them to their peak state, as long as you can find a huge amount of energy to support it, I believe it's completely possible. So that's how it was. Longao already understood Long Fu's meaning and did not continue to dwell on this problem. What he needed to do now was to find a huge amount of energy to awaken the two little fellows as quickly as possible. Longao had just left the dragon seal space. The door had already been pushed open and Tong Tiendi slowly walked in from outside. Uncle Tong. In front of outsiders, Longao would call him Alliance Master. However, when there was no one around, he would directly call him Uncle. This could be considered a secret between the two. Longao, did you gain anything from entering the Burning Heaven Divine Domain this time? So it was because of the Burning Heaven Divine Domain. Longao was very clear in his heart that countless people from the Martial Artists Alliance had entered the Burning Heaven Divine Domain and nothing had ever happened. Only this time, when he entered the Burning Heaven Divine Domain, such a huge thing happened. Not to mention Tong Tiendi, even he himself would be suspicious of this matter. Uncle Tong, to tell you the truth, when I entered the Wilderness Divine Throne this time, I sensed a kind of martial skill. Its power is not bad. Sensed a martial skill. Tong Tiendi deeply sighed because almost every disciple who entered the Wilderness Divine Throne would be able to comprehend a martial skill. As for the strength of the martial skill, it would depend on one's fortune and luck. Longao, could it be that you didn't discover anything wrong in the Burning Heaven Divine region? Alliance Master, I know what you want to ask, but I also do not know why the Burning Heaven Divine Domain was suddenly destroyed. Although Tong Tiendi already knew that Longao would give such an answer, he was still a little unwilling. Longao, I know you really want to see Yu Yin, but now is not the time. Why is that? Longao wasn't surprised that Tong Tiendi had already guessed his intentions. After all, if Tong Tiendi knew his identity, he must know about the matter between him and Yu Yin. This time, he came to the Martial Artists Alliance mainly to see Yu Yin. How could Longao let the matter rest when he was told that it was impossible when he was so close to meeting her? Longao, I already know about the matter between you and Yu Yin. But, let me tell you, even if you see Yu Yin, what can you do? Longao didn't say anything, because he didn't know what Tong Tiendi meant. Longao, have you ever thought that Yu Yin staying in the Martial Artists Alliance is the best choice? Because here, with the support of the Hades and the Martial Artists Alliance, Yu Yin will be able to develop greatly. If she leaves with you, not to mention whether Yu Yin will be able to obtain better resources, she will also become your enemy. At this point, Tong Tiendi suddenly stopped. The meaning of Tong Tiendi's words was very clear. Longao lowered his head and pondered. At this moment, Tong Tiendi also turned around and left, disappearing in an instant as if he had teleported. In fact, Tong Tiendi was able to leave in an instant, not because Tong Tiendi could teleport, but because Tong Tiendi's strength was too strong and his speed was too fast. Even with the naked eye, it was impossible to see how Tong Tiendi left. Longao didn't care about Tong Tiendi, sitting quietly in the courtyard alone. What Tong Tiendi said just now was too much for Longao. All this time, Longao had always wanted to see Yu Yin and take Yu Yin away. He had never thought about anything else, especially what would happen after taking Yu Yin away. Just like what Tong Tiendi said, even if he could take Yu Yin away, he had so many enemies. Even if he wasn't afraid, what about Yu Yin? It was better to be safe than sorry. What if something happened to Yu Yin? What should he do then? Taking a step back. Even if he took Yu Yin back to his family in the Jojo continent, what could he do? Longao was almost certain that once Hades found out, Hades would definitely bring a large group of people to the Jojo continent. If that was the case, things would be really troublesome. Longao knew that with Hades' strength and identity, it would be easy for him to mobilize a large group of people. If Yu Yin continued to stay in the Martial Artists Alliance, not only would her safety be guaranteed, but she would also receive the support of the Martial Artists Alliance. It was killing two birds with one stone. In the end, Longao decided not to take Yu Yin away for now. However, since he had already come to the Martial Artists Alliance, it was still necessary to see Yu Yin. He didn't continue to dwell on this problem. His cultivation had successfully broken through to the green-grade Great Emperor realm. The next task was to think of all kinds of ways to break through from the green-grade Great Emperor realm to the cyan-grade Great Emperor realm in the shortest time possible. 10 Great Emperor realms. From lowest to highest, they were red-grade Great Emperor realm, orange-grade Great Emperor realm, yellow-grade Great Emperor realm, green-grade Great Emperor realm, cyan-grade Great Emperor realm, blue-grade Great Emperor realm, purple-grade Great Emperor realm, black-grade Great Emperor realm, white-grade Great Emperor realm, and gold-grade Great Emperor realm. Above the gold-grade Great Emperor realm was the so-called titled Great Emperor realm. Longao was already very satisfied with his cultivation speed. In just a few months, he had broken through from the Holy Emperor realm to the green-grade Great Emperor realm. If this news were to spread, no one would believe it. Actually, Longao was even clearer that his cultivation speed was so fast. Luck accounted for a large part. After leaving the Burning Sky Divine region, Longao stayed in his residence to cultivate and stabilize his green-grade Great Emperor realm. Peng. At dusk, Longao was still cultivating quietly. At this moment, the door was kicked open violently. Dazzling Mu walked in with a furious face, followed by many people. Dazzling Mu had the support of Shangguan Yi, so he wasn't executed this time. However, he had suffered a lot and had just been released. How could Shangguan Yi let go of this debt so easily? As for the people behind, they were just here to watch the show. Black Wolf, you made me suffer a lot. I would like to see what will happen if you don't kneel down and admit your mistake. Although Dazzling Mu didn't finish his sentence, the meaning of his words was very clear. Everyone outside the door clapped their hands. In everyone's opinion, with Dazzling Mu's strength and identity, it would be a piece of cake for him to kill Black Wolf. Kneel down? With just you. Longao didn't put Dazzling Mu in his eyes at all. He was also surprised that Dazzling Mu didn't die. However, he felt relieved after thinking about it. After all, Dazzling Mu had a Vice Alliance Lord behind him. Shangguan Yi wasn't just a figurehead. Black Wolf, aren't you a little too arrogant? I'm officially challenging you now. If you're a man, accept the challenge. Let me ask you now, do you dare to accept the challenge? Chapter 981. Does he dare? F***CK, Black Wolf isn't a man. Outside the door, everyone was discussing because they all agreed that Black Wolf wouldn't dare to accept Dazzle's challenge. Dazzle was a gold-grade Great Sovereign while Black Wolf was just a yellow-grade Great Sovereign. After all, no one knew that Longao had broken through to the green-grade Great Sovereign realm. Why should I accept the challenge? Longao sneered. If it was before, he would have accepted the challenge even if he knew that he wasn't Dazzle's opponent. But now, Longao wasn't that reckless. Sure enough, I knew that you wouldn't dare to accept the challenge. Black Wolf, I'll give you a chance. Kneel down and admit your mistake, crawl under my crotch and I'll spare your life. Insult. It was a blatant insult. Dazzle, since you're so confident, why don't we make a bet? Bet? What kind of trick is he trying to play? The more the opponent acted like this, the less confident Dazzle was. Everyone outside the door was curious as to what Black Wolf wanted to bet. I thought you were full of confidence, but I didn't expect that you wouldn't dare. Since you don't dare, get out of here and stop embarrassing yourself. He was despised. It was Dazzle who came to find trouble, but now he was despised. Where was Dazzle's face? Although no one said anything, their gaze towards Dazzle was completely different. All right, I'll bet with you. His provocation was a success, and he made it so dazzling that he didn't even ask what the bet was. Dazzle, you and I will give each other a punch. Life or death, victory or defeat, how about it? So that's it. After hearing what Longao wanted to bet, not only Dazzle, but everyone else also laughed crazily. Their laughter was filled with contempt as if they had heard the funniest thing in the world. Black Wolf, since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. Without giving Longao any chance to speak, Dazzle continued, since you're a weakling, I'll let you go first. All right. Longao didn't hold back at all. Longao knew that with his strength, he was no match for Dazzle. Even if he had the Holy Desolation body, he believed that with Dazzle's strength, even if he did not die, he would be severely injured. Therefore, Longao had already decided that this punch had to hit the target. The two sides faced each other, waiting to see what would happen. Everyone was looking forward to it, but they had already guessed the result. Because of the difference in strength between the two, if Black Wolf punched Dazzle, Dazzle might be fine, but if Dazzle punched Black Wolf, would Black Wolf be able to withstand it? Dazzle stood in place, his face full of disdain. His opponent was only a yellow-grade Great Emperor. Even if he used all of his strength, it would be a fool's dream to seriously injure him. Dazzling, are you ready? Ha ha ha, are you kidding me? Do I need to prepare? Dazzle didn't put Black Wolf in his eyes, standing there lazily. Since that's the case, I'll begin. Nonsense, dilly-dallying. Longao sneered in his heart. Since you want to die, you can't blame me. Longao took 10 steps forward, arriving in front of Dazzle. The strength in his body had been pushed to the limit. Longao did not use the Divine Dragon Arm, because Long Qiong had burned his life essence and blood and had fallen into a deep sleep. Even if he used the Divine Dragon Arm, it would be useless. It would be better to think of other methods to see if he could hit the target in one hit. Finally, Longao was ready to use the Emperor Dragon's 9 kills. He took a deep breath. Everyone thought that with Black Wolf's strength, even if he punched, it would only be soft and without the slightest attack power. But at this moment, Longao's right fist suddenly punched out. Even without seeing how he punched, his fist had already hit Dazzle's body. Emperor Dragon's 9 kills, Emperor Dragon's Raging Waves, Emperor Dragon's Heaven Burial, Emperor Dragon's Strangulation, Emperor Dragon's Domineering, Emperor Dragon's Collapse, Emperor Dragon's Falling Explosion, Emperor Dragon's Heart, Emperor Dragon's Devour, Emperor Dragon's Breaking the Heavens. Just now when it hit Dazzle's body, Dazzle didn't have the slightest feeling. The contempt on his face became more and more intense. He didn't put the other party in his eyes, but he never thought that the strength of the other party's punch would be so weak. Not to mention dealing with him, even if it was to deal with a small Hutian warrior, it would not be able to kill him. But in the next second, Dazzle's face suddenly changed. Although the Emperor Dragon's 9 fatal slashes looked like it was only one punch, the strength was stacked layer by layer. One punch contained 9 forces, and one force was stronger than the other. The strength after stacking was simply too terrifying. Longao's Emperor Dragon's 9 kills, even Dazzle couldn't resist it. His whole body flew out like a kite with a broken string, fiercely falling out. Seeing this situation, everyone was shocked. Each and every one of them stared blankly at the scene before them because no one had thought that with Heilang's strength, he could send Dazzling flying with a single punch. It was simply too unbelievable. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have believed it even if they were beaten to death. Dazzle was sent flying by a punch. He fell to the ground heavily and fainted directly. Longao came in front of Dazzle, sighed helplessly, shrugged and said, "Sorry, you lost. You have fainted and don't have the ability to hit me." Looking at all the people outside the door, Longao said coldly, "Why don't you carry this waste out?" Hearing this, a few people came in from outside the door. They carried dazzling eyes and quickly left. Soon, everyone disappeared without a trace. The news of Black Wolf knocking Dazzle out with one punch had spread throughout the Martial Artists Alliance in less than 10 minutes. Everyone who heard the news was shocked because no one chose to believe it. After all, the difference between Black Wolf and Dazzle was too big. One was a yellow-level Great Emperor warrior, the other was a gold-level Great Emperor warrior. The two were not at the same level. If Dazzle had knocked out Black Wolf with one punch, maybe some people would choose to believe it. But if it was the other way around, who would believe it? However, Dazzle was indeed carried out by people. Even if no one believed it, the truth was in front of them. They had to believe it. After being unconscious for 2 hours, Dazzle gradually woke up. Inside the secret room, H, you really can't do anything right. This time, you went to find trouble with Black Wolf. Not only did you not deal with him, but you were knocked out by him. Are you out of your mind? At this moment, Shangguan Yi's face was gloomy to the extreme. He never thought that Black Wolf's strength would be so strong that he could knock out Dazzle with one punch. After all, the difference in strength between the two was too big. Alliance Master Shangguan, this time I was knocked out by Black Wolf because I was careless. I also didn't expect that Black Wolf would play dirty tricks to set me up. If I had known, I would have fought him face to face. P.S. 8 chapters today, continue tomorrow. As for how many chapters, I'm not sure. I'm going to sleep first. I don't dare to stay up late. My body can't take it. Everyone, please forgive me. Chapter 982. He nodded. Shangguan Yi already knew about the bet between the two. Under normal circumstances, not to mention one Black Wolf, even 10 Black Wolves would not be a match for Dazzle Mu. Because of this, Shangguan Yi really wanted to beat up Dazzle Mu in front of him. Why did he have to make a bet? Dazzle Mu had already been knocked out before he could even land a punch. However, the matter had already passed. Shangguan Yi did not continue to pursue Dazzle Mu's responsibility. No matter what, Dazzle Mu was a gold-grade great sovereign. His talent and strength were obvious. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he really did not want to lose Dazzle Mu. Alliance leader Shangguan, what should we do now? He thought for a while. Shangguan Yi sneered and said, think of a way to lure Black Wolf out of the Martial Artists Alliance. Then I'll let my family deal with him. Shangguan family? Dazzle Mu certainly knew what the Deputy Alliance leader's family meant. As one of the 4 great families of the Imperial City, the Shangguan family had both strength and foundation. How could a small Black Wolf be a match for the entire Shangguan family? I know what to do. Dazzle Mu left the secret room and immediately went to make arrangements. Dazzle Mu was knocked out by a punch. Longao was not surprised at all. After all, he knew very well that Dazzle Mu would not let this matter rest. Longao had made up his mind. This time, he would not take Yu Yin with him. However, he wanted to see Yu Yin as soon as possible. When the time came, he would leave the Martial Artists Alliance. Because only through continuous experience and even killing, could he continue to grow. The next day, Longao looked at the letter in his hand. His face was full of worry. It was a letter from Shangguan Fei. Longao had a good impression of this girl. Moreover, Shangguan Fei had helped him before. As a person, one should not repay evil with kindness. Longao immediately got up and left his residence. He left the Martial Artists Alliance and headed for the Imperial City. In the Royal City, there were 4 great clans. The 4 great clans were the Shangguan clan, the Ning clan, the Ma Jiao clan, and the Nangong clan. Among them, the Shangguan clan's strength and foundation were the most powerful. The reason was very simple. The Shangguan clan had a vice-alliance leader holding down the fort. How could the other 3 great clans dare to go against the Shangguan clan? However, the Shangguan clan didn't dare to go too far. After all, the true overlord of the Imperial City was the Martial Artists Alliance, not the Shangguan clan. Even if there was a Deputy Alliance leader, the Deputy Alliance leader was not the most powerful person in the Martial Artists Alliance. Myriad Treasure Tower. Longao rushed over, ready to help Shangguan Fei solve the problem. But what awaited Longao was, looking at Shangguan Fei, Shangguan Mu, and Shangguan Tu in front of him, Longao instantly understood what had happened. Shangguan Fei, I just want to know why. Shangguan Fei had an apologetic look on her face as she said helplessly, I'm sorry. I've always been a member of the Shangguan clan. This sentence was enough, and this explanation was also enough. Longao knew very well that Shangguan Fei had no choice in front of the Shangguan clan. I've already returned the favor you've given me. From now on, our grudges are written off. Shangguan Fei didn't say much, because she didn't know what to say at this moment. She could only turn around and leave silently. She really didn't know how to choose in front of the Shangguan clan. Black Wolf, leave your life behind. Shangguan Mu didn't act rashly, because according to the news he received, the other party had successfully broken through to the Great Emperor realm, and was even a green-grade Great Emperor. One should know that before Black Wolf entered the Martial Artists Alliance, he hadn't even reached the Great Emperor realm. But what about now? Such a cultivation speed was simply unbelievable. Even if he didn't want to believe it, he had to try it out. Shangguan Mu was only a crimson-grade Great Emperor. The gap between him and Longao was too big. However, Shangguan Mu wasn't worried at all, because his uncle, Shangguan Tu, was present. As a purple-grade Great Emperor, Shangguan Tu could actually contend with a small Black Wolf. The Shangguan clan is really jackals of the same tribe. Black Wolf, provoking my Shangguan clan has already determined your life and death. Do you still want to leave the 1,000 Treasure Tower alive? Shangguan Tu, you're too arrogant to cause trouble in my 1,000 Treasure Tower. At this moment, the 1,000 Treasure Tower's Tower Master, Hong Lang, walked over, his body emitting an invisible killing intent. As a divine-grade martial artist, Hong Lang's strength was obvious. A small Shangguan Tu and Shangguan Mu didn't dare to be presumptuous. Senior Hong, this is the old ancestor's intention. Hong Lang wasn't a fool. Of course, he knew who the old ancestor was. Because of this, Hong Lang was shocked. Normally, Shangguan Yi wouldn't ask too much about the Shangguan clan and the imperial city. After all, Shangguan Yi was the Shangguan clan's old ancestor. Everything had to be avoided. But this time, Shangguan Yi personally asked what exactly happened between Black Wolf and the Shangguan clan that made the old ancestor of the Shangguan clan take action personally. It was a bit of a fuss. Shangguan Tu, you have to know that my 1,000 Treasure Tower belongs to the Martial Artists Alliance. It's not under your old ancestor's jurisdiction. If you want to deal with Longao here, I won't agree. I believe the Martial Artists Alliance won't agree either. Hearing Hong Lang's words, both Shangguan Tu and Shangguan Mu's faces turned ugly. Because they didn't expect that after they used the old ancestor's name, the other party wouldn't give them any face. He was simply courting death. What could a small 1,000 Treasure Tower master do even if he was a supreme Dao warrior? In front of the deputy chief of the Martial Artists Alliance, the 1,000 Treasure Tower master was just a fart. Shangguan Tu also snorted and said coldly, Hong Lang, I believe everyone knows the details of you and me. The old ancestor has said that no matter what happens today, Longao must die. If the supreme Dao warrior in my clan is alerted and this matter is blown out of proportion, you won't have a good time either. Both of them couldn't figure out why Hong Lang would stand up for a young boy. Was it worth offending the deputy chief for Black Wolf? They believed that as long as one wasn't a fool, one would know how to choose. One was the core disciple of the Martial Artists Alliance, and the other was the deputy chief of the Martial Artists Alliance. Even a fool would know which one was better. Was Hong Lang's brain flooded with water? It seemed unlikely. In that case, why would Hong Lang risk protecting Black Wolf and choose to go against the deputy chief? What benefits would Hong Lang gain by doing so? After thinking about it, both of them still couldn't figure out the reason, because no one could guess Hong Lang's thoughts. However, the only thing they could be sure of was that with the old ancestors' support, they could be unscrupulous. Even if the Martial Artists Alliance knew about this, they didn't have to be afraid. If the old ancestor wasn't confident, he wouldn't let them deal with Black Wolf. Therefore, no matter what, Black Wolf must die today. Chapter 983. Using the Shangguan clan to suppress him? Hong Lang's face gradually turned cold. As the head of Wanbao Pagoda and a supreme Dao martial artist, Hong Lang's status was obvious. Moreover, Hong Lang was not under the jurisdiction of Shangguan Yi. Otherwise, Hong Lang would not have stepped forward to ask about this matter. Shangguan Tu, leave Wanbao Pagoda and I won't ask you what you do. However, you and the Shangguan clan are not allowed to be presumptuous here. Is Hong Lang crazy? Seeing that Hong Lang did not even give face to the ancestor, Shangguan Tu was completely shocked. No matter what, the ancestor's status was obvious. Hong Lang was just the head of Wanbao Pagoda, who was nothing in front of the deputy alliance master. In this case, Why would Hong Lang offend the Deputy Alliance Master and the Shangguan clan for Black Wolf? Hong Lang, you are really presumptuous. Looking at the old man who suddenly appeared in front of him, Hong Lang's body trembled. As for Shangguan Tu and the others, they were pleasantly surprised. The old man who had just appeared was none other than the ancestor of the Shangguan clan, one of the Deputy Alliance Masters, Shangguan Yi. Deputy Alliance Master Shangguan. Regardless of whether he was under the jurisdiction of the other party, Shangguan Yi was a Deputy Alliance Master after all. With his status, Hong Lang still bowed respectfully. Shangguan Yi waved his hand and said coldly, Hong Lang, do you think that your status is above mine? Hong Lang's heart skipped a beat. Hong Lang was not a fool. Of course, he knew that Shangguan Yi was angry at this moment. Deputy Alliance Master Shangguan, Wanbao Pagoda belongs to the Martial Artists Alliance. Back then, the Alliance Master personally ordered that no one is allowed to fight in Wanbao Pagoda. I believe you have not forgotten, right? Even if Shangguan Yi came personally, Hong Lang still did not give in. It was also because of this that Shangguan Yi was very surprised. A small head of Wanbao Pagoda did not have the guts to disobey him. It was clear that Hong Lang had someone behind him. Otherwise, Hong Lang would not have dared to do this. Hong Lang, what if I insist on fighting? Hong Lang's heart was extremely heavy. In any case, Shangguan Yi was in front of him in both status and strength. Even martial artists of a higher level would not dare to face the Deputy Alliance Master, let alone him. Brother Shangguan Yi, aren't you a little too much? Upon hearing the voice, Shangguan Yi finally understood why Hong Lang was so confident. It turned out that he really had a backer. The person who came was Shangguan Yi. For a long time, Tang Hao and Shangguan Yi had been fighting both openly and covertly. However, they had never fallen out with each other. This time, Longao was just the fuse that ignited the war between the two vice leaders. Tang Hao, what do you mean? Shangguan Yi. Shangguan Yi. Shangguan Yi and Tang Hao's appearance caused the atmosphere to become extremely tense. Both of them were Vice Alliance Masters, and once they started fighting, it was obvious what the outcome would be. Longao stood there quietly. From beginning to end, he did not say a single word. Shangguan Yi, the Alliance has already made a decision on Black Wolf. You want to act on your own. You are looking down on the Alliance. You want to use the Alliance to suppress me? Yes, I will. What do you think? Tang Hao pressed on. Shangguan Yi was caught off guard. He did not expect Tang Hao to be so strong at this time. Tang Hao, Black Wolf killed my family's disciple. We have to settle this today. For your sake, as long as Black Wolf leaves an arm behind, we can write off the grudge. What do you think? In the end, Shangguan Yi chose to compromise. He knew very well that he would be at a disadvantage once this matter was reported to the Alliance. As for Black Wolf, there would be plenty of opportunities in the future. Leave an arm behind? Before Tang Hao could say anything, Longao sneered. What right do you have? Longao said to Tang Hao. Deputy Tang, I have something to talk to you about. Let's talk somewhere else. Tang Hao and Longao nodded. They ignored Shangguan Yi and walked into the 1,000 Treasure Building. In a short while, the two of them disappeared without a trace. Leader Shangguan, please. Hong Lang had been following Tang Hao. Although he was wary of Shangguan Yi, he was not afraid of Shangguan Yi. Let's go. Shangguan Yi did not act recklessly. He could not let the Alliance know about this. Otherwise, things would become very troublesome. Outside the 1,000 Treasure Building, Shangguan Yi stopped suddenly. He was emitting a terrifying murderous aura. Tang Hao had humiliated Shangguan Yi. How could he take it lying down? Old ancestor, what should we do next? Shangguan Tu did not expect that even the old ancestor could not kill Black Wolf successfully. Shangguan Tu did not expect that Black Wolf had the support of a Deputy Alliance leader. No wonder he was so arrogant and dared to provoke the family clan and the old ancestor. Temph, no one who provoked me has survived. Shangguan Tu did not dare to speak. Shangguan Mu did not dare to speak either. The two of them were like two ants in front of Shangguan Yi. Gather the men for me now. Remember, do not use any Supreme Dao martial artists. As long as Black Wolf dares to leave the Thousand Treasure Building, no matter what method you use, you have to kill him. If Black Wolf can return to the Alliance, you can bring your head to me. Understood, old ancestor. I will do it now. Shangguan Yi stared at the Thousand Treasure Building in front of him. He sneered and said to himself, Tang Hao, Black Wolf, I will let you know the consequences of provoking me, Shangguan Yi. Inside the Thousand Treasure Building. Hong Lang, there is nothing for you to do. You may leave. Yes. Hong Lang bowed respectfully and slowly left the room. In the room, there was another person besides Tang Hao and Longao. It was Murong Yanga. Longao already knew about the relationship between Murong Yanga and Tang Hao. Otherwise, why would Tang Hao help him if he did not eat too much? Yang I brought the person you wanted. You did not have to think about him every day. Grandpa. Murong Yanga held Tang Hao's hand and acted coquettishly with a red face. After all, how could Tang Hao not know what she was thinking? Longao's heart skipped a beat when he heard Tang Hao's words. Could it be that Murong Yanga liked him? If that was the case, then things would be troublesome. After all, Longao only had Aoshue and Yu Yin in his heart. Even Ling could not accept it, let alone other people. Because of this, Longao was very clear that he must not provoke Murong Yanga. Otherwise, he would definitely hurt this girl. Yanga, thank you very much this time. Longao knew that if it were not for Murong Yanga, Tang Hao would definitely not help him. If that was the case, he would not be so relaxed. P.S. I had a small headache in the afternoon, so I took a nap. Little Nine went to eat first. It will explode at night and continue in the morning. Everyone, please forgive me. Chapter 984. You don't have to be so polite with me. Yang attitude was obviously different. The more Yang acted like this, the more Longao didn't know what to do. The three of them sat down. Black Wolf, it seems like Shangguan Yi is determined to deal with you. Remember, be careful. Longao nodded. How could he not know what Tang Hao was worried about? I know. In the following time, the three of them talked about Shangguan Yi. Then, Longao left through the back door. Yang I can feel that Black Wolf doesn't like you. Seeing that his grandson had fallen in love with his granddaughter, Tang Hao sighed heavily in his heart. He knew very well that if Hei Lang didn't like his granddaughter, this relationship would end in tragedy. Since he knew it would end in a tragedy, why start it? Grandpa, I know what to do. Without giving Tang Hao any chance to speak, Murong Yanga continued, I hope that Grandpa can help Black Wolf. Since things had reached this stage, how could Tang Hao say no? After leaving the Thousand Treasure Pagoda, Longao didn't continue to stay in the Imperial City. With his current strength, he wasn't a match for Shangguan Yi and the Shangguan clan. If he chose to fight them head-on, only death would await him. Longao planned to return to the Martial Artists Alliance and find a chance to meet Yu Yin. Then, he would leave the Imperial City and the Martial Artists Alliance. When he was strong enough in the future, he would take revenge. If it was an ordinary person, it would be impossible for them to know that the Thousand Treasure Pagoda had a back door. However, the Shangguan clan was different. As one of the four major clans in the Imperial City, the Shangguan clan already knew the ins and outs of the Thousand Treasure Pagoda. Exactly. As soon as Longao left the Thousand Treasure Pagoda, the Shangguan clan locked onto him. Shangguan too sneered when he received the news. He immediately brought Shangguan Mu and the four blue-grade Great Emperors out of the clan and headed towards Longao's direction. On the way back to the Martial Artists Alliance from the Imperial City, Longao was successfully intercepted by Shangguan Tu and the other five. Black Wolf, now that things have come to this, do you really think you can return to the Martial Artists Alliance? Shangguan Tu had a sinister smile on his face, but he knew very well that no matter what happened, Black Wolf could not return to the Martial Artists Alliance. Otherwise, not to mention them, even the old ancestor might not be able to kill Black Wolf smoothly. With just the two of you? With just us? It's not that I'm looking down on you, but why don't we make a bet? If you can keep me here, I'll give you my head. If you can't, from now on, you'll have to kneel down before me every time you see me. Do you dare? Looking at Hei Lang's confident face, Shangguan too felt a little uncertain. The more confident Longao was, the more uncertain Shangguan too was. However, if he chose not to bet, wouldn't it be telling everyone that he was afraid? As a disciple of the Shangguan clan and a purple-grade great emperor, Shangguan too cared a lot about his reputation. What's more, in Shangguan too's eyes, he had never put Longao in his eyes. Even if Longao dared to fight against the ancestor and the family, it was all because of Tang Hao, the deputy leader behind this person, and not how powerful this person's strength was. All right, Black Wolf, I'd like to see how you're going to escape from me today. 1 purple-grade Great Emperor-level martial artist and 4 blue-grade Great Emperor-level martial artists. If Hei Lang still managed to escape from them, they would rather commit suicide than continue living. However, in the next second, a shocking scene took place. Under everyone's eyes, Black Wolf, who was just there, suddenly disappeared. That's right, he disappeared into thin air without a trace. Everyone stared blankly at the scene in front of them. No one knew what had happened because they couldn't figure out why Black Wolf, who was just there, would suddenly disappear. Uncle, what happened? At this moment, Shangguan too's face was extremely gloomy. If Black Wolf could escape like this, his reputation would be completely lost. A figure flashed and Dazzling Eye's figure suddenly appeared. Shangguan too, what happened? Of course, Shangguan too knew Dazzling Eye's identity. He bowed respectfully and then told Dazzling Eye about what had just happened. After listening, Dazzling Eye's face didn't look too good. After all, no matter who heard or encountered such a thing, they would be shocked. A mere yellow-grade Great Emperor could actually do this. If they didn't see it with their own eyes, no one would believe it. Senior brother Dazzling Eye, what should we do now? The old ancestor had personally given the order, but they didn't succeed in killing Black Wolf. Shangguan too didn't dare to look for the old ancestor, so he could only ask Dazzling Eye for help. After all, Dazzling Eye was a purple-grade Great Emperor and a core disciple of the Alliance. He believed that if Dazzling Eye helped, things wouldn't be too bad. But Shangguan too didn't know that Dazzling Eye was actually sent by Shangguan Yi. However, Dazzling Eye didn't say anything about this. Everyone had their own agenda. Don't worry. Although Black Wolf can disappear into thin air, I believe that Black Wolf definitely didn't return to the Alliance. Shangguan too, let's immediately guard the exit. I don't believe that Black Wolf can escape. Okay. Shangguan too didn't dare to be careless and immediately left with Dazzling Eye. As soon as the two left, Longao's figure appeared. Looking at the figures of the people in front of him who were already far away, Longao sneered. Longao didn't leave. He just entered the Dragon Seal space. He had already decided that if he didn't teach Shangguan Yi and the Shangguan clan a lesson, they would really think that he was easy to bully. Today, I'm going to do something that others can't do. Under normal circumstances, it was almost impossible for a low-level Great Emperor to kill a high-level Great Emperor. However, Longao wanted to challenge it. He wanted to see if he could kill a blue-grade Great Emperor or even a purple-grade Great Emperor with his green-grade Great Emperor strength. Longao's figure disappeared instantly. With his speed, it was as easy as turning his hand to catch up with Shangguan too, Dazzling Eye, and the others. From the beginning to the end, Shangguan too and the others didn't expect that Longao didn't leave. Instead, he turned back and followed them. The two couldn't even sense Longao's aura. The two parties, one in front and one behind, shot toward the Martial Artists Alliance. The distance from the Imperial City to the Martial Artists Alliance wasn't too far. However, Shangguan too and Dazzling Eye stopped when they were about 10 minutes away from the Martial Artists Alliance. Their intentions were simple. They wanted to continue intercepting Black Wolf here. The old ancestor had already given the order. No matter what happened, they had to kill Black Wolf. P.S. It's a bit of a headache. I reluctantly wrote another chapter. I'm going to rest early today. I'll wake up at 7 tomorrow to write 10 chapters. Chapter 985. Xian Mu, Shangguan Mu, and Shangguan 2. A gold grade Great Sovereign, a purple grade Great Sovereign, and 4 blue grade Great Sovereigns. This force was very strong. If it was a one-on-one battle, Longao wouldn't be a match for the 7 of them. However, the current situation was that the enemy was in the open, while they were in the dark. The 7 of them had just stabilized themselves, and before they could discuss what to do, a terrifying sword chi slashed towards them. A dragon roar resounded. The dragon roar and sword chi came one after another, causing the surrounding space to tremble. Countless sword chi appeared, scaring the 7 of them. Without giving them any chance, the sword chi attacked them from all directions. Xianmu and Shangguan 2 resisted with all their might, but even so, Shangguan Mu's body was still pierced by the sword chi, and he fell to the ground. Looking at the corpse on the ground, the remaining 6 of them were terrified to the extreme. They didn't know what had happened. Who was it? After thinking for a while, the 2 of them locked onto Black Wolf. Other than Black Wolf, it seemed that no one dared to attack them at this moment. They were simply courting death. Looking at the corpse on the ground, Shangguan 2 was furious to the extreme. His face was extremely gloomy, and it was as ugly as it could get. Originally, they were the ones who killed He Lang, but in the end, they were the ones who were assassinated by He Lang. Especially their own nephew, who died here. From the beginning to the end, they did not find any trace of He Lang. Senior brother Xianmu, what should we do now? After searching around, he couldn't find any trace of Black Wolf. Until now, Shangguan 2 still didn't know how Black Wolf did it. He lowered his head and pondered. Xianmu also realized that He Lang wasn't an ordinary person. Let's not talk about what had just happened, just the strength that He Lang had shown in the Burning Sky God Realm wasn't something that a yellow-grade Great Emperor martial artist could display. Who is Black Wolf? All along, Xianmu had doubts about Black Wolf's identity. Let's wait and see. I don't believe that Black Wolf can kill us. Until now, Dazzle didn't put Black Wolf in his eyes. If he had the strength to kill them, he wouldn't have to hide. Black Wolf, if you're still a man, come out and fight us fair and square. Why are you hiding? Senior brother Dazzling Eye, are you sure Black Wolf is here? Looking at the empty surroundings, Shangguan 2 found it hard to imagine that Black Wolf was nearby. Otherwise, how could Black Wolf do this? No one responded. In the next second, countless sword chi shot out in an instant. The sword chi crisscrossed and was abnormally terrifying. Learning from the previous incident, the remaining 6 people stood back to back. With the strength of the 6 people, the sword chi was unable to harm them. Regarding this point, Longao was very clear about it. In the dragon seal space, Long Fu seemed to be very curious and asked, Master, since you clearly know that you can't kill 6 people with your strength, why are you still wasting your energy? All is fair in war. All is fair in war. Hearing his master's words, Long Fu was very curious. He didn't know what his master wanted to do. Longao was still using the dragon seal space to constantly send out countless sword chi. From the beginning to the end, Longao was looking for an opportunity. Once he grasped the opportunity, he would not hesitate to attack. Since things had come to this point, he would be sorry if he didn't kill a few people. However, what happened next made Longao feel very depressed. Originally, he wanted to use this opportunity to kill Shangguan 2 and Dazzling Eye in one fell swoop. However, he never thought that an uninvited guest would suddenly appear just as he was about to attack. This uninvited guest was none other than his sworn enemy, the deputy chief of the alliance, Shangguan Yi, a supreme divine path martial artist. Longao instantly gave up because he knew very well that with his current strength, even if he launched a sneak attack or used other methods, it was impossible to kill Shangguan Yi. In the end, he might even go for wool and come home shorn. Ancestor, Black Wolf is nearby. Shangguan Yi nodded. Of course, he knew that Black Wolf was nearby. Because of this, Shangguan Yi was also a little surprised because even he didn't know how Black Wolf did it. He could actually disappear in front of him and launch an attack. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed it. Today, no matter what, you must find Black Wolf for me. Yes, Ancestor. Both Dazzling Eye and Shangguan too knew very well that their ancestor was really angry at this moment. Therefore, they didn't dare to be the slightest bit careless. They immediately scattered and began to search for Black Wolf's traces. However, it was useless. Longao had already left. Now, he might have successfully returned to the Martial Artists Alliance. If this matter was known by others, they might be angered to death. In the Martial Artists Alliance. As soon as Longao returned, Ling'er came to look for him. As if she couldn't wait, Ling'er said straightforwardly, "Longao, I just got the news that Shangguan seems to want to kill you. Therefore, if there's nothing else, you'd better not leave the alliance. Do you understand?" Longao already knew about this. This time, the reason why he left the Martial Artists Alliance and went to the Imperial City was mainly to help Shangguan Feiya. However, he didn't expect that Shangguan Feiya would only lead him to the Imperial City and let the Shangguan clan deal with him. However, Longao didn't regret it at all. After all, he had regarded Shangguan Feiya as a true friend. Longao didn't tell her about Shangguan Feiya's matter. In his opinion, it was already over. Therefore, he said, "Ling'er, I'll deal with this matter. You're always like this. Anyway, just be careful. By the way, I think you won't be able to see senior sister." "Why is that?" Hearing Ling'er's words, Longao was shocked. Although he didn't want to take Yu Yin away, it was necessary to see her. Otherwise, why would he join the Martial Artists Alliance this time? However, the main reason he joined the Martial Artists Alliance this time was to see Yu Yin. Seeing Longao so anxious, Ling'er felt an inexplicable pain in her heart. She also felt a little sour, but she didn't show it. In Ling'er's opinion, she wouldn't give up on her feelings, but she wouldn't chase too hard either. "Longao, I won't hide it from you. Senior sister already knows that you've joined the Martial Artists Alliance, but she can't see you. You should know the reason. In the current situation, seeing you won't do you any good. Master has already taken senior sister away from the Martial Artists Alliance. According to the information I received, Master took senior sister away this time mainly for the Supreme Shinto. So that's why. As for Yu Yin's intention, how could Longao not know?" However, Longao was more or less unhappy that he couldn't see Yu Yin. He had already reached this point, but he still couldn't see her. However, Longao wasn't a reckless person. "P.S. My wife turned off the alarm, so I didn't get up until 92 am. I'm so depressed. I'll eat immediately and write a book. Today's 10 chapters." Chapter 986. Longao knew very well that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for Yu Yin. Supreme Divine Path. Yu Yin's cultivation had successfully broken through to the Divine Path. Although she was only at the virtual God realm, with Yu Yin's talent and potential, as well as the great help from the Martial Artists Alliance, it would not be difficult for her to break through to the Divine Path. Longao certainly hoped to see Yu Yin become a Supreme Divine Path martial artist. "Ling'er, I understand. Longao, don't worry. Nothing will happen to senior sister if she stays in the Alliance. At the very least, before she breaks through to the Supreme Divine Path, I believe that the Alliance and Master will not consider her marriage." If that was the case, then he was relieved. Since he could not see Yu Yin, Longao was ready to leave the Martial Artists Alliance. He had decided to wait until his cultivation broke through to the Supreme Divine Path and return to the Martial Artists Alliance. At that time, it would be the time to take Yu Yin away. "Ling'er, I'm leaving the Alliance tomorrow." Ling'er did not seem surprised at all. She had already guessed that Longao would do this. "Longao, do you know the consequences if you leave the Alliance?" Regarding Ling'er's worries in her heart, how could Longao not know? Even so, could he stay in the Martial Artists Alliance forever? "Ling'er, I'll take care of my problems. Don't worry. Thank you for taking care of me during this time. Remember, don't waste any more time. I hope that the next time I see you, you'll have broken through to the Supreme Divine Path." Ling'er nodded and did not say much. She did not know what to say at this time. Seeing Ling'er get up and leave, Longao sighed deeply. He still could not accept Ling'er's love. At night, Stars dotted the sky. Longao sat quietly in the courtyard by himself. No one knew what he was thinking in his mind. Alliance Master. Seeing Tong Tiendi suddenly appear, Longao got up and bowed respectfully. No matter what, Tong Tiendi's status and strength were obvious. Other than being the leader of the Martial Artists Alliance, Tong Tiendi was also on the Heaven roll. In the Martial Heaven continent, the two strongest rankings were the Earth ranking and the Heaven ranking. According to the rules of the Earth ranking, as long as one wasn't over 40 years old, they could pursue it. It was one of the most valuable rankings of the Martial Heaven continent's younger generation. As for the Heaven ranking, it was the strongest ranking in the entire Martial Heaven continent. Anyone who could enter the Heaven ranking was a peak existence in the Martial Heaven continent. Longao knew very well that Tong Tiendi, who was by his side, was at least one of the top 15 on the Heaven list. Longao, I believe you already know about Yu Yin, right? Nodding his head, Longao didn't say anything, but his meaning was clear. I know. Hades is doing this for Yu Yin's sake. The Divine Tao is a realm that every martial artist dreams of. If you love Yu Yin, you won't stop him. Alliance Master, I have already decided to leave the Alliance tomorrow. He seemed to be surprised, but Tong Tiendi felt relieved after thinking about it. You've really decided? Uncle Tong, I have already decided. But don't worry, no matter where I go, I will be a member of the Alliance. As long as the Alliance is in danger, I will definitely rush over. A gentleman keeps his word. A gentleman keeps his word. Hearing Longao's words, Tong Tiendi was delighted. This was what he wanted. Longao, I can guarantee you that before you come to the Alliance, Yu Yin will definitely be fine. She will also not get married. Many thanks, Uncle Tong. They were just using each other. Longao didn't really think that Tong Tiendi would look at him differently for Linger's sake. What he wanted was for Yu Yin to be safe. At this moment, Tong Tiendi took out a token from his chest. The word Emperor was engraved on it. The token emitted a terrifying aura. It was obviously a treasure. What was this? What did Tong Tiendi mean by this? Longao, this token is my symbol. Once you see this token, someone will come to see me. If you encounter any trouble in the future, you can mobilize any forces. Taking the token, Longao was shocked. He was well aware of the significance of the badge in his hand. Uncle Tong. Waving his hand, he didn't give Longao any chance to speak. You just said that you will always be a member of the Martial Artists Alliance. Since that is the case, why do you still refuse? At this point, Longao knew very well that he couldn't take it. Moreover, Longao was very excited. He knew that once he had this token, he could mobilize any forces in the Alliance. At that time, even if someone wanted to deal with him, he could use the Martial Artists Alliance to protect himself. Many thanks, Uncle Tong. Longao didn't continue to be courteous and accepted the token. Tong Tiendi laughed and nodded. He said, I look forward to your visit to the Martial Artists Alliance again. At that time, I will arrange everything. I hope you can get Yu Yin as you wish. After Tong Tiendi left, Longao stood there quietly. This was the way the world was. There were no eternal enemies, and no eternal friends. He and the Martial Artists Alliance used to be enemies. But now, they were neither friends nor enemies. It was more about mutual benefits. Longao knew very well that if there came a day when he was no longer useful, Tong Tiendi would be the first to deal with him. This was the reality. This was the world. Strength. In the end, one had to have great strength to survive in this world. Not only oneself, but even one's family and friends would not be affected by the rules. In the secret room of the Martial Artists Alliance. Deputy Chief Shangguan, I have investigated. Black Wolf has already returned to the Alliance. We have been waiting for nothing. At this moment, Shangguan Ye's face was extremely gloomy. He couldn't figure out how Black Wolf did it. How could he disappear right under his nose? Was it possible? No matter whether Shangguan Ye believed it or not, the truth was right in front of him. Once this matter was spread out, where would his family's reputation go? Where would his family's reputation go? Murderous intent filled the air. Dazzling Mu shuddered and stood there in fear. He didn't dare to say a word as he was afraid that Shangguan Yi would kill him in a fit of rage. In the alliance, we can't do anything. Why are the chief and Tang Hao siding with Black Wolf? Why? Shangguan Yi still couldn't figure out why the chief and the deputy chief were siding with a small core disciple. This matter was a little strange. Could it be that the chief and Tang Hao wanted to use Black Wolf to deal with him? If that was the case, wouldn't it be a little unnecessary? After all, with the chief's strength and status, it would be easy for him to get rid of him. P.S. Don't worry, the 10 chapters will be delivered tonight. Chapter 987. Alliance Master, what should we do now? In order to flatter, Dazzling Mu directly removed the word vice. Shangguan Yi didn't say much. After thinking for a while, Shangguan Yi said, "We can't do anything in the alliance. I don't believe Black Wolf will stay in the alliance forever." The next day, the sky was just bright. Longao had already got up and left the martial artists' alliance. 2 figures appeared behind him. They were Yu Yin and Ling Er. Looking at the gradually fading figure, Ling Er asked curiously, "Senior sister, Longao traveled thousands of miles from the Jojo continent to see you. Why don't you want to see him?" Ling Er certainly knew the relationship between the two of them. Because of this, she couldn't figure out why her senior sister didn't want to see him when they could meet so easily. See him? How could Yuan not want to see the person she loved? But could she see him? Ling Er, I believe you know better than me about Master's situation. We must not let Longao's identity be exposed. I see. In the end, her senior sister didn't want to see Longao because she was afraid that he would be in trouble. Senior sister, what are you going to do next? Cultivation. No matter how difficult it is, I have to break through to the supreme divine path as soon as possible. Only when I reach that level can I not be controlled by others. Only then can I see Longao openly. Indeed. Ling Er didn't continue to say anything because this was the world. Without strength, everything was nonsense. In the Imperial City, Longao didn't leave immediately because he still had his biggest enemy here, which was one of the 4 great families, the Shangguan family. Before leaving, Longao planned to deal with Shangguan Tu first. As for Shangguan Jing and Shangguan Mu, he had already killed them. After killing Shangguan Tu, he would slowly settle the remaining grievances in the future. Longao spent 3 whole days before he finally determined Shangguan Tu's position with great difficulty. It could be considered that he had found an opportunity. In the treasure tower. Although Shangguan Yi was not on good terms with the 10,000 treasure tower, the treasures of the 10,000 treasure tower were indeed very tempting. Even Shangguan Tu was no exception. Shangguan Tu realized that with his current strength, if he could possess a divine weapon, he would be able to put up a fight even if he encountered a high-level Great Emperor. Hence, Shangguan Tu entered the Myriad Treasure Tower. Longao, who was following behind Shangguan Tu, sneered in his heart. As soon as he entered the Myriad Treasure Tower, Shangguan Tu's expression changed abruptly. He dodged sideways, and a sword chi brushed past him. If he didn't react in time, he believed that he would have been killed by the sword chi that suddenly appeared. Black Wolf, come out if you dare. Other than Black Wolf, Shangguan Tu could not think of anyone else. Even so, Shangguan Tu was still very surprised. He had never thought that Black Wolf would dare to show up under such circumstances and launch a sneak attack on him. No one answered. No one in the surroundings knew what was going on, but no one was a fool. A battle was about to break out, so everyone avoided it and hid far away, afraid that they would be implicated. In an instant. In the entire Myriad Treasure Tower, only Shangguan Tu was left in the center. The more it was so, the more worried Shangguan Tu was. Speaking of which, it was extremely laughable. No matter what, Black Wolf was only a green-grade Great Emperor, while Shangguan Tu was a genuine purple-grade Great Emperor. The difference between the two was huge, and they were not even on the same level. Not to mention a head-on battle, just a sneak attack alone would not be able to kill Shangguan Tu with Black Wolf's strength. Longao's situation was completely different. Once the sneak attack was successful, The power of the dragon raw sword chi was enough to kill Shangguan Tu. One should know that Longao and Dazzling Mu had a bet previously. Longao had knocked Dazzling Mu out with a single punch. Dazzling Mu's strength was not something that Shangguan Tu could compare to. Dazzling Mu was a genuine gold-grade Great Emperor. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At this moment, sword chi came from all directions. As the dragon roar rang out, the sword chi did not show any mercy. Under normal circumstances, except for such a huge matter, WN Bao Tower believed that the people from WN Bao Tower, even Hong Lang, would appear personally. But now, no one from WN Bao Tower came out, and Hong Lang was nowhere to be found. Shangguan Tu was not a fool. He seemed to have guessed something. It seemed like Black Wolf had joined forces with WN Bao Tower to kill him. With Shangguan Tu's strength, dodging these sword chi should be more than enough. But for some reason, Shangguan Tu's body was suddenly locked in place. He could not move at all, allowing the sword chi to pierce through his body. In just a few seconds, Shangguan Tu was hit by hundreds of sword chi. Plop! Shangguan Tu's body fell heavily to the ground. At this moment, the staff of WN Bao Tower arrived one after another. But it was too late. As for what WN Bao Tower meant, who knew? Anyway, Shangguan Tu was dead. WN Bao Tower, 3rd floor, room. Thank you for your help, Senior Hong. It was all thanks to Hong Lang that he was able to kill Shangguan Tu this time. Longao was also very surprised. He did not expect Hong Lang to help him. If Hong Lang had not locked Shangguan Tu with his aura, he would not have been able to kill Shangguan Tu. A Supreme Dao martial artist was indeed a Supreme Dao martial artist. In front of a Supreme Dao martial artist, a Great Emperor martial artist was like a child in front of an adult. Their aura alone could lock them in place, making them unable to move. Black Wolf, we have a tacit understanding about this matter. No one saw you or me. Even if the Shangguan family comes out to investigate, this matter will be solved by the deputy chief. But you still have to be careful when you leave the Martial Artists Alliance this time. I believe the Shangguan family will not let this matter go. How could Longao not know what Hong Lang was worried about? Although he didn't kill Shangguan Tu directly, the Shangguan clan would definitely think of him. No matter whether he was the one who did it or not, he believed that this debt would be counted on him. If that was the case, there was no doubt that the Shangguan family would deal with him. However, if there was no danger, where would there be opportunities and training? Longao was never afraid of danger. Otherwise, he would not have provoked the Shangguan family and Shangguan Iya. After all, in the Tianwu continent, Shangguan Iya was already very powerful. Senior Hong, it's getting late. I will take my leave first. Be careful. Nodding, Longao did not continue to stay. He left the WN Bao Tower from the back door. This time, Longao did not continue to rest for even a second. He directly left the Imperial City and shot into the distance. In a short while, he had already disappeared into the horizon. Tower Master, everything has been settled. There are no traces left behind. Very good. When will the Shangguan family arrive? They have already arrived at the entrance. Tower Master, what should we do next? What should they do? Counter soldiers with arms, water with an earth weir. Hong Lang smiled. He had already thought of a countermeasure, so he was not worried at all. Chapter 988. Inside the Treasure Tower. Hong Lang was a little surprised to see Shangguan Iya suddenly appear. Hong Lang had never expected that Shangguan Iya, the ancestor of the Shangguan family, would be attracted by a nobody like Shangguan Tu. Hong Lang, why did Shangguan Tu die here? Shangguan Iya's voice was extremely cold. If it were not for the fact that the treasure tower was also the territory of the Martial Artists Alliance, he would have destroyed the treasure tower long ago. Deputy Chief Shangguan, I just came back from outside. I don't know what happened either. Hong Lang shrugged helplessly. Of course, he would not tell the truth. What a joke. Hong Lang was almost certain that once he told the truth, the Alliance would not pursue the matter even if Shangguan Iya destroyed the treasure tower. In other words, he would not admit it even if he was beaten to death. He stared at Hong Lang in front of him. It was easy for Shangguan Yi to kill Hong Lang. However, Shangguan Yi could not do so. The reason was very simple. Hong Lang was Tang Hao's man. If he killed Hong Lang without evidence, he would completely fall out with Tang Hao. In that case, it would not do him any good. Could it be Black Wolf? It was unlikely. Shangguan Yi had guessed that it was Black Wolf. However, he could be sure that Black Wolf alone could not kill Shangguan too. If there was no accident, he should have the help of the treasure tower. However, without solid evidence, even he could not act recklessly. In the end, Shangguan Yi left the treasure tower with the body. He knew that even if he was the deputy chief, he could do nothing if Hong Lang insisted that it had nothing to do with the treasure tower. Looking at the people who were gradually leaving, Hong Lang's mouth slowly curved into a cold smile. Shangguan Yi was extremely angry. With his identity in the Martial Artists Alliance, he quickly found out that Black Wolf had left the Martial Artists Alliance. He was pleasantly surprised. In Shangguan Yi's eyes, her chance had finally come. As long as Black Wolf left the Martial Artists Alliance, he would have plenty of chances to kill him. At that time, he would see who else could help Black Wolf. As a result, Shangguan Yi had sent out a large number of people. Not only were there Great Emperor Realm cultivators, but there were also Supreme Dao cultivators. It was not hard to imagine that Shangguan Yi was determined to kill Black Wolf this time. Tianwu Continent. They were the Long family, the Alchemy Guild, the Martial Artists Alliance, the WN Shou sect, the Heaven and Earth sect, the Five Elements sect, the Wanzhan School, the Sword sect, the Purple Thunder sect, and the Black Heaven sect. The 10 Directions tripod was the so-called One Clan, 2 Alliances, 3 Gates, and 4 sects, one of the 10 superpowers, the Sword sect. In the Sword sect, 99% of the people used swords. Not only could they condense the Sword Soul and Sword Soul, but they could also become one with the sword. Their power was extremely terrifying. Sword Sect Mountain. In the Sword Sect main hall, Murong Guenar sat at the head of the table. There was only one person below him, and that was Murong Yanga. If Longao was here, he would definitely be shocked. After all, with their status and strength, it was impossible for them to appear in the Sword Sect Mountain, let alone in the main hall. Father, I have already been to the Martial Artists Alliance. It seems that Tong Tiendi is very good to Longao. Nodding his head, Murong Guenar said with a smile, I have already met Long Di Tien. I believe that Longao is not simple. Otherwise, the two of them would not be scheming against each other. Murong Guenar, the Sword Sect Master, was nicknamed Emperor Ken. His strength was unfathomable. Even Tong Tiendi and Long Di Tien were afraid of him. Father, you must help Longao. How could Murong Guenar not know about his daughter's thoughts? Bugue was indeed very interested in Longao. Otherwise, he would not have sent his daughter to the Martial Artists Alliance to help Longao. Hey! Before Murong Guenar could reply, he was surprised. Immediately after, he smiled and said, Yang wait for me here. On a mountain peak far away from the Sword Sect. The entire mountain peak was listed as a forbidden area by the Sword Sect. Unless the master gave the order, no matter who it was, they would be killed immediately if they dared to approach. It was because of this. The entire mountain peak was silent. A dragon's roar rang out. At this moment, an earth-shattering sound resounded through the entire area. A huge dragon spanned across the sky. Long Di Tien stood on the dragon's head and looked at the man in front of him. He smiled and said, Brother Murong, you are getting stronger. It seems that you will have a place in the top 5 of the Heaven ranking. 5th on the Heaven ranking. It was obvious how terrifying it was. Emperor Ken, Murong Guenar, also smiled and said, Brother Long, you are too infuriating. Brother Murong, I came here this time mainly because I heard that you have mastered that move. Therefore, I would like to see it for myself. All right. The huge dragon under Long Di Tien's feet was the leader of the Dragon Clan. He was also the #1 expert of the Dragon Clan. When the two of them worked together, no one was their match. Long Di Tien was also one of the top 3 on the Heaven ranking. In the blink of an eye, the two of them were ready. Brother Long, I'm here. The battle in the air. A sword formed from energy appeared in Muronguenar's hand. He instantly slashed out. It looked like an ordinary sword, but its power was earth-shattering. The entire mountain peak trembled. The aura of the heaven and earth was like a tornado that was condensed by the sword chi. What a terrifying move. Long Di-Tien did not dare to be careless. He immediately fused with his dragon and used all his strength to block the sword. Boom! The sword landed squarely on Long Di-Tien's body. However, from the beginning to the end, Long Di-Tien did not dodge at all. This time, Long Di-Tien came to the sword sect to see how terrifying the power of Muronguenar's newly mastered sword move was. When one's strength reached their level, it seemed that it was very difficult to break through. It was because of this that they kept fighting. They hoped to use the opportunity of fighting to gain insights and break through. The entire world lost its color. Muronguenar's sword was too terrifying. The sword chi disappeared, and Long Di-Tien and the giant dragon appeared. The man and the dragon were not injured at all. However, Long Di-Tien's expression was extremely grave. This was because he had used his full strength just now. Otherwise, it would have been very difficult for him to block Muronguenar's sword. Brother Murong, this sword of yours is enough to sweep through everyone in the same realm. You are not far from the peak of the Sword Dao. The peak of the Sword Dao was a realm that all Sword Dao warriors dreamed of reaching. However, Muronguenar was very clear in his heart that it was too difficult to reach the peak of the Sword Dao. In all these years, no one in the sword sect had been able to break through the Sword Dao and sword arts. Brothers Long, if the two of you join hands, who in the entire Sky Martial continent can be your match? This sword of mine has only scratched the surface. It is easier said than done to reach the so-called peak of the Sword Dao. Hearing this, Long Di-Tien let out a deep sigh. Chapter 989. Sword Sect Mountain. Sword Sect Main Hall. Yang Er had already left, leaving only two people in the main hall. They were the Long family's patriarch, Long Di-Tien, and the Sword Sect Master, Emperor Ken, and Muronguenar. As for the Dragon Clan's patriarch, he had already disappeared. Brother Murong, our strength has already reached a bottleneck. I believe they are the same. It seems like we have to head to that place. Otherwise, we will never be able to reach the pinnacle of the Martial Dao. The pinnacle of the Martial Dao and the pinnacle of the Sword Dao were different methods to achieve the same result. When the pinnacle of the Martial Dao was mentioned, Muronguenar let out a deep sigh. Brother Long, you should know that once we search for the source energy, we will trigger the Heavenly Dao. If the Heavenly Dao makes a move, Muronguenar didn't continue speaking. Both of them knew what it meant if the Heavenly Dao made a move. We are afraid of the Heavenly Dao. That's why we have to wait. Are we going to continue like this? Long Di-Tien was obviously getting impatient. Especially after Long Di-Tien heard from the godly mathematician that the Long family and the Dragon Clan were about to face the 10,000-year calamity. Long Di-Tien hoped that he could break through the pinnacle of the Martial Dao as soon as possible. Brother Long, why don't we discuss with them and see what we should do? All right. The 10 Great Tripod. The 10 great sects of the 10 great factions were already standing at the peak of the Sky Martial continent. However, they weren't satisfied. All 10 of them wanted to break through the pinnacle of the Martial Dao and stand at the same height as the Heavenly Dao. However, the existence of the Heavenly Dao could almost completely suppress them. When Longao left the Emperor City, he didn't travel openly. He knew that Shangguan Yi would definitely not give up on this rare opportunity. She would definitely send people to kill him. Clear Sky Sect. Grandfather, we still can't find Longao's whereabouts. Yang Dingtian and Zhao Yu stood there trembling in fear because they realized that the old ancestor in front of them had changed. Her body was emitting a terrifying murderous aura. The two of them even had a feeling that Yang Yu could kill them at any moment. Yang Yu's face, which was already very cold, became even colder after hearing their words. Killing Longao was not a big deal, but taking back the God-slaying sword was a big deal. The God-executing sword was the supreme treasure of the Supreme Sky Sect. However, Xiao Chen lost it in his hands. Yang Yu simply could not swallow this. Originally, he thought that with the help of his master's power, he could lock onto Longao's position at any time, but in the end, ever since the last failure, no matter how hard Yang Yu tried, she was unable to lock onto Longao's position. What was going on? I have a way to lock onto Longao's position. Hearing his grandfather's words, Yang Dingtian was a little scared, but he still asked, "Grandpa, is there any way to lock onto Longao's position? The three of us will work together. Join forces." Yang Dingtian and Zhao Yu were very curious, but they didn't dare to continue asking. Inside a cave in a barren mountain, Longao sat on the ground quietly. Apart from cultivating, he spent most of his time condensing his soul power and cultivating his soul array attack. During this trip to the Martial Art Alliance, Longao had discovered one thing. That was, in a battle between martialists, even if they were fighting against high-level martialists, as long as they could use the soul array formation to attack, they could still kill their opponent. It was exactly so. Longao was preparing to condense his soul array attack. After all, with his current strength, even if he encountered a green-grade Great Emperor martial artist, it wouldn't be an easy task to kill him. Inside the Dragon Seal space. Long Fu, I want to ask you now. Are there any realms above the Nirvana realm? Longao had already started to doubt this point because he didn't believe that the Nirvana realm was the pinnacle of the martial Tao. Otherwise, there would be a problem. Master, you should have already guessed it. The Nirvana realm isn't the pinnacle. The true pinnacle of the martial Tao is the Heaven Tao realm, the pinnacle of the martial Tao. As expected. In other words, the realm above the Nirvana realm was the true pinnacle of the martial Tao. Long Fu, Tong Tiendi, and Long Di Tian have all reached the Nirvana realm, right? Long Ao had a guess in his heart. Tong Tiendi, Long Di Tian, and the Heaven and Earth sect leader's clone should have all reached the Nirvana realm. They were only one step away from the pinnacle of the martial Tao. Tianwu continent. Long Ao was almost certain that the current dragon god of the Dragon Clan, the patriarch of the Phoenix clan, and the ancient Phoenix should all be in the Nirvana realm. These people were the true super-existences that could threaten the Heaven Tao. However, Long Ao was also clear that even if these people had broken through the Nirvana realm, they wouldn't be able to reach the pinnacle of the martial Tao without the origin energy. In the entire Tianwu continent, all the origin energy was in the hands of the Heaven Tao and the clairvoyant. Would the Heaven Tao give the origin energy to these so-called Nirvana realm martial artists? The answer was without a doubt, the Heaven Tao definitely wouldn't. Furthermore, Long Ao was sure that as long as someone dared to fuse with the origin energy, the Heaven Tao would mercilessly kill them. Master, your guess is correct. They are all Nirvana realm martial artists. As expected. Long Ao wasn't surprised at all. After all, the 10 Master of the 10 Directions were the peak existences of the Tianwu continent. If they hadn't even reached the Nirvana realm, it would be a bit unworthy of their name. Master, with your current situation, the Nirvana realm seems to be too far away. Break through to the titled Great Emperor realm first, then strive to reach the 9th Heaven Demigod realm within a year. The Demigod realm was divided into 9 levels. From low to high, they were the 1st Heaven Demigod, 2nd Heaven Demigod, 3rd Heaven Demigod, 4th Heaven Demigod, 5th Heaven Demigod, 6th Heaven Demigod, 7th Heaven Demigod, 8th Heaven Demigod, and 9th Heaven Demigod. The Demigod realm was above the Great Emperor realm. It was considered a transition between a titled Great Emperor and a supreme Tao martial artist. This realm was very important, but many people directly neglected it. Just as Long Fu said, Long Ao only had one thing to do next. No matter what happened, he had to raise his cultivation to the titled Great Emperor realm first. Because only then would he have the qualifications to talk about the higher demigod realm, or even the supreme Tao realm. Long Fu, is there any way to speed up my cultivation? Although Long Ao felt that his cultivation speed was already very fast, he still felt that it wasn't enough. In just a few months, He had broken through from the Saint Emperor realm to the green-grade Great Emperor realm. If others were to know about this cultivation speed, they would probably be shocked. Longao's cultivation speed was unprecedented. Even so, Longao was still very dissatisfied. He wanted to continue increasing his cultivation speed. It would be best if he could become a titled Great Emperor within a month. P.S. I will definitely finish updating tonight. Chapter 990. Master, there is a way, but it's very dangerous. Speak. Longao wasn't afraid of danger. As long as he could break through quickly, he wouldn't hesitate even if it was a mountain of blades or a sea of flames. Master, I believe you know that the Martial Sky continent has a total of 10 superpowers. He nodded. Long Fu naturally knew about the 10 tripod. Longao naturally knew about them. The Long family, the Pill Alliance, the Martial Artists Alliance, the Myriad Beast Sect, the Heaven and Earth Sect, the Five Elements Sect, the Wanjan School, the Sword Sect, the Violet Thunder Sect, and the Profound Heaven Sect. Longao was very curious. What did his cultivation speed have to do with the 10 tripod? Master, only the Sword Sect's comprehension of the Way of the Sword is number 1 amongst the 10 sects. So, what you need to do now is head to the Sword Sect and continuously challenge experts of the Way of the Sword. Start with the Way of the Sword and hope that you can quickly increase your strength. Sword Dao. Longao was also very clear about the Sword Dao. Only the members of the Sword Sect cultivated the Sword Dao. Their lives could be lost, but their swords couldn't be destroyed. In short, as long as the sword existed, the person existed. If the sword disappeared, the person would die. Longao was very curious. Why did he have to start with the Sword Dao? After all, the Sword Dao wasn't his main focus. Long Fu, why is that? Master, you've already obtained the God-punishing sword and comprehended the God-punishing art. The Sword Dao is the most suitable path for you. As for the future, it'll depend on your choice. So that's how it was. Long Fu's meaning was very simple. No matter what he chose in the future, the Sword Dao was the most suitable path for him right now. Speaking of the Sword Sect, Longao instantly thought of Murong Yanga. Since Long Fu had already said this, Longao didn't hesitate in the slightest. As for the Sword Sect's branch, Longao didn't plan on going there. If he wanted to go, he would go to the Sword Sect's headquarters. That way, he would be able to see the peak experts of the Martial Heaven continent. Longao immediately set off. Because the Sword Sect was really far from the Martial Artists Alliance, he estimated that it would take at least half a month to get to the Sword Sect from here. If it were an ordinary person, it would probably take a few years, or even a few decades. On the second day after Longao left, Shangguaniye had already sent out a large group of people. The leader of this team was the leader of the Red Blood Guards, Qian Yi. Qian took away more than 100 people, which was more than 100 great emperors. Among them, there were some who were dazzling. Shangguaniye gave a strict order. No matter what happened, they were to bring back Black Wolf's body. Qian Yi didn't dare to disobey Shangguaniye's order, so he could only take away more than 100 people. However, Qian Yi was very confident. With his strength and more than 100 great emperors, if they still couldn't kill Black Wolf, then he should really commit suicide. As for Tang Hao, although Tang Hao had promised Yang to take care of Black Wolf, the current situation was that Longao had already left the Martial Artists Alliance. Although Tang Hao didn't get along with Shangguaniye, he didn't want to fall out with them at this time. As a result, Tang Hao didn't send anyone to protect Black Wolf. The reason was obvious. Because of this, the relationship between Shangguaniye and Tang Hao began to ease. Qian Yi took more than 100 people and chased after Black Wolf. This time, after leaving the Martial Artists Alliance, Qian Yi received a divine weapon from Shangguaniye. It could lock onto the opponent's position within a short range. For 3 consecutive days. Boss Qian, where's Black Wolf? Qian Yi's face was a little serious. It seemed that he wasn't sure, but he still said, according to the range I've locked onto, Black Wolf seems to be heading towards the Sword Sect. The Sword Sect. Of course, everyone knew what the Sword Sect meant. The Sword Sect was the headquarters of the Sword Sect. As one of the top 10 sects, the Sword Sect's strength and foundation were not much different from the Martial Artists Alliance. Boss Chen, do you mean that Black Wolf is heading towards the Sword Sect? If I'm not mistaken, that should be the case. I'm also very confused. Why is Black Wolf going to the Sword Sect? Boss Chen, what should we do? Kill him. With Shangguan Ye's death order, Chen Yi was very clear that they had to kill Black Wolf this time. Otherwise, not to mention the problem of face, just Shangguan Yi alone was enough to make them lose face. Chen Yi and the dazzling 100 people didn't hesitate at all. They immediately continued on their way and headed towards the Sword Sect. In fact, Chen Yi and the others were also gambling. Because if they won the bet, they could successfully kill Black Wolf. If they lost the bet, they would completely lose track of Black Wolf's whereabouts. When the time came, it was simply too difficult to find a person in the vast sea of people. Just as Chen Yi had sensed, Longao's target was the Sword Sect, which was the headquarters of the Sword Sect. Longao had already guessed that Shangguan Yi wouldn't let him go and would definitely send people to kill him. However, Longao had never expected that Chen Yi and Dazzling Mu would be able to locate and guess that his destination was the Sword Sect. Otherwise, Longao would have thought of countermeasures. In Longao's opinion, once he left the Martial Artists Alliance, as long as he was careful, it wouldn't be so easy for Shangguan Yi to find him. Because of this, Longao was a little careless, which gave Chen Yi an opportunity to take advantage of. Gradually, the distance between Longao and Chen Yi and the others was getting closer and closer. With the artifact given by Shangguan Yi, Chen Yi successfully located Longao's location. However, in order to kill Longao in one shot, Chen Yi and the others didn't immediately chase after Longao. The 100 people slowly approached Longao from all directions. According to Chen Yi, this time, no matter what happened, they had to kill Black Wolf so that they could return to the Alliance and report to the Deputy Alliance Leader. Boss Chen, I believe you've heard of the legend. For some unknown reason, Hei Lang can disappear without a trace. Even the Vice Alliance Leader couldn't control Hei Lang. Boss Chen, if we can't stop this, it's best that we don't do anything. Otherwise, if we miss this opportunity, it won't be easy to continue to lock onto Hei Lang's position. Chen Yi had heard about what Shen Mu said, so he said, when I left the Alliance, the Deputy Alliance Leader told me about this. According to the Deputy Alliance Leader, the reason why Black Wolf can disappear suddenly is that Black Wolf has a space artifact. Shen Mu had already guessed that it was a space artifact, but he didn't know how to deal with it. Moreover, he was very curious. If Shangguan Yi had a way to stop it, why didn't she take it out earlier? Why did she wait until now? Boss Chen, what does the Deputy Alliance Leader mean? It's very simple. This is the token that the Deputy Alliance Leader gave me. The power inside can interfere with spatial fluctuations. I believe that with it, Black Wolf can't disappear in front of us. When the time comes, Black Wolf will die without a doubt. P.S. Little Nine is working so hard. I hope everyone can buy some tickets. Please, the remaining 4 chapters will all be delivered tonight. You can only stay up late. Chapter 991. With the power given by Shangguan Yi, Chen Yi and the others were confident that they could kill Black Wolf. Longao, who was rushing to the Sword Sect, slowly realized that something was wrong. Longao stopped. He looked around. Since you're here, why are you sneaking around? Come out. Ha ha ha, Black Wolf, I can't help but admire your sensitivity. Since the matter had been exposed, Chen Yi, Dazzling Mu, and the others didn't continue to hide and walked out laughing. Dazzling Mu and Chen Yi. Looking at the 2 people who suddenly appeared, Longao sneered. He wasn't surprised at all. So it's 2 dogs. Helplessly shaking his head, Longao's face was filled with contempt and ridicule. In his opinion, the 2 of them could only be considered as Shangguan Yi's dogs. Black Wolf, I'll give you a chance to scold me slowly, but you won't have the chance. With just the 2 of you. Longao smiled as he prepared to enter the dragon seal space. He was very clear that with his strength, it was impossible for him to be a match for the other party. Furthermore, since Chen Yi had come, the Scarlet Bloodguards might also follow. But the next scene made Longao a little shocked. Longao found that he couldn't enter the dragon seal space. Could it be that the two in front of him were playing tricks? Ha ha ha, Black Wolf, you can't disappear, right? Looking at the two's crazy ridicule, Longao knew that the reason why he couldn't enter the dragon seal space was definitely related to Chen Yi and Dazzling Mu. Longao wanted to know how the two of them did it. Black Wolf, I'll let you know why you died. Chen Yi took out a medallion and sneered, Hey Lang, this is the medallion that the vice leader gave me. As long as I have this medallion, you can forget about using a spatial artifact to disappear. So that's how it is. Longao was very curious. Just what kind of treasure was the token in Chen Yi's hand? It could actually stop spatial fluctuations. Longao couldn't understand. If Shangguan Yi had such a treasure, why didn't she take it out earlier? If Shanghai Yi had locked onto his position and couldn't enter the dragon seal space, then he would be in big trouble. He did not continue to dwell on this issue. This was because Longao was very clear that if he was unable to enter the dragon seal space, then things would be very troublesome. Black Wolf, are you scared? Scared my ass. Longao swung his sword backwards. At the same time, a dragon roar resounded. Sword chi shot out in all directions because Longao was certain that there were great emperors lying in ambush. As expected. Wherever the sword chi passed, everyone dodged. The sword chi of a green-grade great sovereign was able to frighten countless great sovereigns into retreating. If this matter were to spread out, they would probably become a laughingstock. Black Wolf, you're dead meat this time. In order to ensure that nothing went wrong, Chen Yi and Shen Mu did not hesitate any longer. The two of them, along with hundreds of great emperors, charged forward together. With such a horrifying strength, even a titled great emperor would be torn apart in an instant, let alone Longao. Furthermore, Chen Yi wasn't a great emperor, but a so-called divine path martial artist. A dragon roar resounded. At this moment, a gigantic shadow of a dragon appeared behind Longao's back. An aura of space shot out in all directions. To everyone's shock, the space around them started to move, and their bodies were locked onto. Just what was going on? Just as Longao was about to strike, a squeaking sound rang out. A black shadow shot out from Longao's embrace towards the hundreds of great emperors. Squeak, squeak, squeak. The moment the little black rat appeared, it let out a furious squeak. As the weapon spirit of the blood pool, even if it had not awakened, the speed of the little black rat was unmatched. Even though the little black rat's strength was not as strong as the great emperor's, its speed was way above them. Just like that, in a few seconds, the little black rat had already bitten tens of great emperors. The little black rat was nothing in their eyes. In the eyes of Shen Mu and Chen Yi, the little black rat was just a weak spirit beast. Both of them were curious. Since things had come to this stage, did the Black Wolf really think that he could escape with such a weak little black rat? What a joke. But just as the two of them were about to break free from the lock and continue attacking the Black Wolf, a shocking scene appeared. Without exception, all the great emperors who were bitten by the little black rat fell to the ground. Their flesh and blood disappeared, leaving only skeletons behind. Looking at the dozens of skeletons on the ground, whether it was Shen Mu, Chen Yi, or anyone else, all of them shuddered. This was because no one had expected such a weak little black rat to be so terrifying. No matter who it was, whether it was a green or blue-grade great emperor, as long as they were bitten by the little black rat, they would all end up in the same way. They would all turn into skeletons. If they weren't afraid, then they would be lying. Not to mention the others, even Longao was deeply shocked by the scene that was happening before his eyes. He had not expected the little black rat to be so terrifying. As long as someone was bitten, no matter how strong they were, they would all turn into skeletons. The little black rat's shadow continued to flicker as though it had bitten its way to the head. With a swoosh, it had already returned to Longao's embrace. The little black rat's strength had completely shocked everyone. Chen Yi, Shen Mu, and the others did not dare to continue attacking. They stared at the black wolf in front of them because they had not expected the black wolf to have such a move. In Shenmu and Chen-Yi's point of view, the black wolf could not disappear because of the token that disturbed the space. But the little black rat's appearance had completely disrupted their confidence. If the little black rat continued, they would all turn into skeletons. Black wolf. Waving his hand, Longao did not give Chen-Yi any chance to speak. He said impatiently, "Chen-Yi, Shenmu, if you want to fight, then fight. If you don't want to fight, then get lost. I don't have time to dawdle here with you." If Longao had said that just now, Shenmu and Chen-Yi would have laughed crazily in disdain. But now, the scene just now was still vivid in their minds. In addition to being dignified and afraid, how could they have any contempt and contempt? Should they just give up like this? Chen-Yi and Shenmu were very clear that if they chose to give up at this time, once they returned to the Martial Artists Alliance, Shanghai Iya would blame them and they would definitely die. If they continued to attack, they would die. If they went back, they would die. In the end, they chose to continue attacking. Ha ha ha, Black Wolf, don't think that you are invincible with a little black rat. Today, I would like to see if you can leave here alive. Chen-Yi was still full of confidence. No matter what, he was still a warrior of the divine path. Great Emperor warriors were far from his match. P.S. The 7th chapter has been delivered. Make some noodles, continue writing the book, continue voting. Chapter 992. Since you guys want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. The more confident Longao was, the more uncertain Shenmu and Chen-Yi were. But since things had come to this point, they could only bite the bullet and continue. But in the next second, seeing the black wolf suddenly disappear, Chen-Yi and Shenmu instantly understood what had happened. We've been tricked. Just as Shenmu said, the little black rat's strength and speed could only deal with great emperors. As for titled great emperors and supreme Dao warriors, it couldn't deal with them. This was the real reason why Longao suddenly disappeared. If the little black rat could kill everyone, why would Longao choose to leave? It wasn't as if there was water in his brain. Under normal circumstances, Longao wouldn't be able to teleport away with the token's interference. But the situation now was different. With the little black rat's strength, Shenmu and Chen-Yi were already frightened and didn't use the token. This gave Longao a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. "PH, the black wolf gave us a trick. I'd like to see how he can escape from our hands." Since he already knew that the other party didn't have the strength to kill them, Chen-Yi's confidence instantly exploded. He continued to lock onto the black wolf's position. Losing dozens of great emperors this time made Chen-Yi very unhappy. But as long as he could deal with the black wolf, he could get back twice what he had lost. Longao used spatial teleportation to leave successfully. He was able to leave alive this time because of luck and the little black rat's help. Thinking of the little black rat, Longao couldn't wait. He found an extremely secluded place and entered the dragon seal space. This way, he wouldn't have to worry about being locked onto by Chen-Yi and being chased. Inside the dragon seal space. Long Fu, what's going on with the little black rat? The little black rat's strength was simply too terrifying. Even Longao had self-awareness. If he was bitten by the little black rat, he believed that he would instantly become a skeleton. "Master, I just sensed the little guy's body. If I'm not wrong, the reason why the little guy became so terrifying should be related to what happened in the mysterious space." He nodded. If that was the case, Longao could already guess what had happened. Back in the mysterious space, it was because of the little black rat's sudden appearance that he was able to block the little black snake's attack. Long Fu, with the little fellow's strength, if he encounters a deity realm martial artist, what will the outcome be? This was what Longao was most concerned about. If the little fellow's strength was enough to threaten a supreme Dao martial artist, then he wouldn't need to bother with Chen-Yi and the others anymore. He wouldn't need to be chased by the other party and would instead be chased back. But the result was not as he wished. Master, the little guy's condition isn't very good. He just forcefully devoured the flesh and blood of 10 people. He seems to have some indigestion. Moreover, with the little guy's current strength, not to mention a supreme Dao martial artist, even a titled Great Emperor martial artist wouldn't be able to do it. So that was the case. Looks like I won't be able to get my revenge. Although Longao was very confident in his own strength, he still knew his limits. With his current strength, even a green or blue-grade Great Emperor martial artist would have a hard time dealing with him, let alone a higher-level martial artist. Longao was somewhat unwilling, but this was the situation. He couldn't just throw his life away. According to the situation just now, Longao was almost certain that Qian Yi must have some treasure that could lock onto his position. Otherwise, Qian Yi and Xian Mu wouldn't be able to find him. If that was the case, he would be in a bit of trouble. What should he do? Long Fu, what should I do to shake them off? Master, I've already thought about it. If you want to shake them off, the only way is to create a diversion. Feint in the east and attack in the west. Then, Long Fu explained his plan. After listening, Longao nodded in satisfaction. Long Fu's plan was simple. He just needed to find a corpse demon and merge his aura with it. Then, Qian Yi and Xian Mu would follow the corpse demon far away. At that time, he would be able to shake them off completely. He did as he said. Longao didn't have much time left. According to his agreement with Longbo, he would have to return to the Long family in 8 to 9 months at most to undergo the bloodline awakening. Longao placed great importance on the bloodline's second awakening. Calculating the time. It had been more than 3 months since he left the Long family. At the very most, it was less than 5 months. In other words, he had to strive to break through the titled Great Emperor realm in the remaining 5 months. At the very least, he had to reach the 9th heaven demigod realm. Longao found a Great Emperor spiritual beast's corpse demon in the dragon seal space and merged his aura with the corpse demon. The corpse demon was in the opposite direction of the sword sect. Hey, Big Boss Chen, what's wrong? Seeing Qian Yi suddenly stop, as if something had happened, Xian Mu was curious. Did something happen to Black Wolf? As expected. Qian Yi had a curious expression on her face as she said, I just locked onto Hei Lang's position, and he didn't continue towards the sword sect. Instead, he left in the opposite direction. What exactly is he doing? Qian Yi was very curious about Black Wolf's sudden change of direction. Xian Mu's expression was also a little heavy. Previously, they had failed to kill Black Wolf. They could already guess that Black Wolf would be on guard. If they wanted to continue killing Black Wolf, it wouldn't be that easy. Big Boss Chen, are you saying that Black Wolf is playing with us? Qian Yi nodded. Although he didn't want to believe it, they couldn't afford any mishaps. The martial heaven continent was too big. Once they lost Black Wolf's lock, it would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens. So Qian Yi was very clear that they couldn't afford to make a single mistake. We can't make a mistake. Black Wolf is clearly afraid. He's trying to create a diversion. But right now, we can't be sure whether Longao will continue towards the sword sect or go in the opposite direction. Xian Mu didn't continue. This choice was too difficult. If they made the right choice, everything would be fine. But if they made the wrong choice, they wouldn't be able to answer to their vice leader when they returned to the alliance. No matter what, Qian Yi was the leader of this group. So even if they took 10,000 steps back and couldn't kill Black Wolf, all the consequences would be borne by Qian Yi. As for Xian Mu, if he could avoid it, he would avoid it. Xian Mu, we only have one method. You and I will each lead a group. You continue chasing in the direction of the sword sect, and I'll go in the opposite direction. If anything happens, notify me immediately. P.S. There are still 2 chapters left. It should be done around 3. Chapter 993. Split up and chase. Dazzling Mu was still a little afraid. After all, Little Black Rat's strength was there. It was better to be safe than sorry. What if Little Black Rat's strength was enough to kill him? But Dazzling Mu was very clear that since Chen Yi had ordered, he could only follow. Fortunately, he could still get half of the Great Emperor warriors. At least. If there were any changes, he could let these people be cannon fodder first. Dazzling Mu, is there a problem? Of course, Dazzling Mu didn't dare to tell Chen Yi what he was thinking. He said, Boss Chen, this is not a problem. My only problem now is, if you and I split up, how do we locate Black Wolf? Anyway, Shangguan Ye only gave them a divine tool. Should he give it to Chen Yi? Or should he give it to Dazzling Mu? For this problem, Chen Yi seemed to be a little tricky. He thought for a while. In the end, Chen Yi decided and said, take this divine tool first, and all the Red Blood Guards will follow you. If you encounter Black Wolf, kill him. He was suddenly happy. Dazzling Mu didn't continue to talk nonsense. It was beyond his expectation that Chen Yi could do this. In this way, in order to be foolproof, Chen Yi and Dazzling Mu finally chose to split up and chase Black Wolf. Longao was a little surprised by the two's method. According to Longao's previous guess, since the two could lock his aura, once the corpse slave with his aura turned around, the two would definitely catch up. But in the end, the two used this method. There was no other way. Since the other side was like this, he could only block soldiers with arms and water with an earth weir. Longao didn't change his direction. Long Fu had already said that with his current situation, the most suitable thing for him was to cultivate sword principle. Longao had already decided that before he returned to the Long family, he must break through the ninth heaven demigod realm. At that time, once he awakened his bloodline for the second time, he believed that it was not impossible to reach the peak of the ninth heaven demigod realm, or even break through the divine Tao. That was exactly so. Whether it was a mountain of swords or a sea of fire, Longao would go to the sword sect mountain. Dazzling Mu took the divine tool and went all the way to the sword sect. No matter where he went, he always locked onto Longao's aura. In the beginning, he couldn't lock onto his opponent's aura. Dazzling Eye once believed that He Lang had changed his direction and that Chen Yi's direction was the correct one. But at that moment, he suddenly locked onto his opponent's aura of Black Wolf. Sneered. Let's see how you to go to the sword sect. Until now, Shenmu still hadn't figured out why He Lang wanted to go to Sword Sect Mountain, and what was the relationship between He Lang and Sword Sect. Just in case, Shenmu had decided that before He Lang arrived at Sword Sect Mountain, he must kill this person. He absolutely could not leave any trouble for himself. Just like that, Dazzling Mu led more than 90 great emperors. Their speed was doubled. They wanted to kill Black Wolf. However, Dazzling Mu didn't expect that Black Wolf didn't rush to the sword sect. Instead, Black Wolf prepared to deal with them. Longao had already thought about it. Since Chen Yi was not here, then for him, this was undoubtedly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If he couldn't get rid of these stalkers, he would be in endless trouble even if he went to the sword sect. He would have to worry about being chased and targeted at all times. If that was the case, how could he challenge sword experts? How could he cultivate sword Dao and reach a higher realm? Because of this, Longao decided to take care of Dazzling Mu and the others even if it meant risking his life. Would an ordinary person dare to do so? Adding up Shen Mu and the others, there were more than 90 great emperors. Any one of them was at least a green-grade great emperor. Among them, Shen Mu was a gold-grade great emperor. What kind of concept was that? If an ordinary person encountered such a powerful force, they would have already turned around and ran. However, not only did Longao not leave, he was even prepared to deal with everyone. If this matter were to spread out, there would definitely be people who would scold Longao for having water in his head and acting recklessly. However, Longao was such a person. He knew that there were tigers in the mountain, but he still went to the mountain. Although he chose to deal with Dazzling Mu and the others, Longao didn't act recklessly. After all, the other party was a powerful great emperor team. Any one of them would be enough to give him a headache. In the end, Longao chose to use the formation to deal with Dazzling Mu and the others. Within the Burning Sky formation arts, Longao chose 4 formations that were easy to set up and powerful. They were the 1,000 Ghosts Devouring Formation, Primal Chaos Everlasting Formation, Nirvana Void Lifeless Formation, and 3 Lives 3 Death Soul Dispersing Formation. Longao had already thought about it. The 4 formations were interconnected. When the time came, as long as he grasped the opportunity, he might be able to kill Dazzling Mu and the others. Formations were the most mysterious power in the world. Formation masters were a super existence that was above the martial artists. A powerful formation master could not only fight against 10,000, he could also kill enemies above his level. This was the real reason why all the martial artists were afraid of formation masters. In the Sky Martial continent, many martial artists didn't want to provoke formation masters. After all, formation masters could use formations to kill martial artists who were much stronger than them. The 1,000 Ghosts Devouring Formation, Primal Chaos Everlasting Formation, Nirvana Void Lifeless Formation, and 3 Lives 3 Death Soul Dispersing Formation. The 4 formations were interconnected. Longao calculated the time. Even with his current level of formation skills, it would take him at least 3 days to set up the 4 formations. Longao was very clear that he couldn't reveal the slightest flaw when setting up the formations. Otherwise, if Dazzling Mu and the others didn't enter the formation, it would be a pain in the ass. After thinking about it, Longao decided to use the Corpse Demon to attract Dazzling Mu's attention. He would set up the 4 formations himself. 3 days later, Dazzling Mu's death would come. In a desolate valley. Longao calmly stood in the valley. Long Fu's figure appeared. Looking around, he smiled. "Master, the place you chose is really good. Choosing to set up the 4 formations here is practically flawless. At that time, as long as the time is right, we'll definitely be able to kill Dazzling Mu and the others." Hearing Long Fu's words, Longao was delighted. Since Long Fu had said so, he was even more confident. Clenching his fists, he looked at the desolate valley in front of him. Longao was very clear that he would kill Dazzling Mu and the others here. "Master, how are you planning to set up the 4 formations?"
Oh.
Longao understood Long Fu very well. If he didn't have any other meaning, Long Fu definitely wouldn't ask such a question. Was there a problem? Longao didn't hide anything. He told Longao his thoughts. Author's note: Chapter 9 has arrived. I can't hold on any longer. Hold on, hold on. This is the last chapter. Chapter 994. Long Fu, is there a problem with my arrangement? Longao was definitely better than Long Fu in terms of formations. However, Longao wouldn't be stubborn because he knew that Long Fu was experienced and knowledgeable. He believed that Long Fu must have his reasons. "Master, you mean to make the 4 formations linked together. Although the power is incomparably strong, it can't integrate the power of heaven and earth. It will be difficult to deal with Shen Mu and the others. Long Fu, how should I arrange it?" "Master, the 4 formations, Ghost Devourer Formation, Chaos Everlasting Formation, Nirvana Nothingness Formation, and 3 Lives 3 Death Soul Dispersing Formation, are arranged in the east, south, west, and north respectively. This way, it can integrate the power of heaven and earth more effectively." East, south, west, and north. Longao finally chose to believe Long Fu. The power of the interlocking formations was great, but as Long Fu said, it couldn't integrate the power of heaven and earth. Longao didn't hesitate and immediately began to arrange the formations. The 4 formations were arranged in the east, south, west, and north respectively. The Ghost Devourer Formation was arranged in the east, the Chaos Everlasting Formation was arranged in the south, the Nirvana Nothingness Formation was arranged in the west, and the 3 Lives 3 Death Soul Dispersing Formation was arranged in the north. After 2.5 days, Longao finally completed the arrangement. However, Longao was very curious. Even if he arranged the 4 formations according to Long Fu's plan, he couldn't borrow the power of heaven and earth. If so, how could he kill Shen Mu and the other great emperors? "Long Fu, what should I do next?" How could Long Fu not know what his master meant? "Master, You have successfully arranged the 4 formations in the east, south, west, and north. Now you only need to do one thing, which is to integrate the power of heaven and earth with the power of heaven and earth. When the time comes, use the power of heaven and earth to kill them. Of course, Longao knew what Long Fu said. However, Longao didn't know what to do. After all, it wasn't easy to borrow the power of heaven and earth. Master, I'll settle the rest for you. Hearing Long Fu's words, Longao was overjoyed. If he had Long Fu's help, then everything would be much easier. On the 3rd day, Longao and Long Fu had successfully arranged the 4 spirit arrays. The next thing they needed to do was to lure Xianmu and the others into the valley and catch them all in one fell swoop. Not far from the valley. Dazzle, there's no need to lock onto my aura. I'm standing right in front of you. Let's see what you can do to me. Dazzle was surprised to see Black Wolf brimming with confidence. Could it be that the little black rat in Black Wolf's arms could kill him? Having learned his lesson, Dazzling Eye was actually quite afraid of Black Wolf. However, things had already come to this point. Even if he didn't want to, he had to. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to answer to the Deputy Alliance Leader. It was precisely because of this. Xianmu held back his worry and sneered. Black Wolf, are you going to commit suicide? Or do you want me to do it myself? Without waiting for Dazzling Eye to finish speaking, Longao's fist had already smashed out. Without giving anyone a chance to react, Longao immediately turned around and ran away. In the blink of an eye, he had disappeared without a trace. Chase after him. The more Longao acted like this, the more relieved Dazzle was. If the little black rat could kill him, Black Wolf wouldn't have run away. In the end, Black Wolf was still afraid of him. Dazzle led more than 90 great emperors to chase after Black Wolf. However, Longao's speed was very fast. Even without teleportation, he was able to open up the distance between them. In a short while, both sides had arrived outside the valley. Longao did not hesitate at all. He directly entered the valley and disappeared. When the Dazzling Eyes came, they all stopped abruptly. Senior Brother Dazzle, why don't we go in? The others were very curious. They didn't know what was going on with Dazzle because they saw Black Wolf enter the valley. As long as they guarded the entrance, they could catch a turtle in a jar. Black Wolf would die without a doubt. But what was the result? I don't know why, but I feel that something is wrong. What's wrong? Everyone was very curious and despised Dazzle in their hearts. They had been locking on to their opponent for a long time. Now that they had finally found him, they were afraid of him. Shameless to the extreme. Everyone knew that if Black Wolf was confident, he wouldn't have run away as soon as he saw them. But no matter what, Dazzle was still the leader. Even if everyone was unhappy, they couldn't say it out loud. For safety's sake, send 10 people into the valley. If something happens, inform me immediately. Everyone nodded. 10 people walked out from the crowd. All of them were blue-grade great emperors. The 10 people entered the valley and soon disappeared into the valley shrouded in black fog. Within the valley, only 10 people had entered. Longao was a little depressed. But he would kill whoever came. 10 great emperors weren't a small number. No matter where they were, they couldn't be underestimated. As soon as the 10 people entered the valley, Longao activated the 4 formations. Ghost Devourer Formation, Chaos Everlasting Formation, Nirvana Void Lifeless Formation, and 3 Lives 3 Deaths Soul Dispersing Formation. Borrowing the power of heaven and earth, he began to attack the 10 great emperors. Boom boom boom, boom boom boom. Within the valley, there was thunder and lightning everywhere. Outside, it was calm. No one knew what was happening inside the valley. Because of this, Dazzle didn't dare to enter the valley. He thought that Black Wolf had an ulterior motive. In the blink of an eye, an hour had passed. Not only Dazzle, but the others also felt that things were getting troublesome. The others asked, Senior Brother Dazzle, something's not right. Why don't we go in and have a look? Waving his hand, Dazzle cursed in his heart. He knew that something was wrong, but he still wanted to enter the valley. This mother *K was courting death. From the beginning, Dazzle was very wary of Black Wolf. Not to mention now. Let's wait and see. We'll guard the exit. I don't believe that Black Wolf won't leave the valley. Dazzle was clear that Black Wolf must have set up some traps in the valley. Otherwise, the 10 great emperors wouldn't stay inside for such a long time. Dazzle's intention was simple. That was to wait. After all, there was only one exit in the entire valley. As long as they guarded the exit, he didn't believe that Black Wolf wouldn't come out for the rest of his life. Everyone shrugged their shoulders helplessly. Since things had come to this point, this was probably the only way. Master, the 10 people who just entered the formation are all blue-grade great emperors. So, it's easy to deal with them. You have to lure the others in. Otherwise, we won't be able to kill them. Nodding his head, Longao knew what Long Fu said. But the problem now was that Dazzle and the others seemed to have guessed something. They didn't want to come in at all. There was nothing he could do. P.S. All 10 chapters have been delivered. It's already 3:30. Xiaoju, go to sleep. Everyone, please vote. Chapter 995. Longao was frustrated that Xian Mu and the others did not enter the valley. With the help of the 4 great formations and the power of heaven and earth, Longao successfully killed 10 blue-grade great emperors. Inside the valley. Master, the power of our formation can only last for a day, said the old man. Nodding. Regarding what Long Fu said, how could Longao not know what it meant? One day was neither long nor short. If he could not lure Xian Mu and the others into the valley, wouldn't it be a waste of time? What method could he use to lure Xian Mu and the others into the valley? Thinking back and forth, Longao still could not think of a better idea. In the end, Longao could only use himself to lure Xian Mu and the others into the valley. In the next second, Longao arrived outside the valley. Looking at the many great emperors in front of him, Longao sneered and said disdainfully, Xian Mu, weren't you arrogant just now? Why don't you dare to come in and kill me? Black Wolf. Longao waved his hand and did not give Dazzling any opportunity to speak. He continued to say, a group of cowardly mice trash. I thought all of you were very powerful, but I didn't expect that all of you are cowards. In that case, I won't play with you. Longao's words were an insult to these great emperors. Xian Mu could bear it, but the others could not. Black Wolf, don't be so arrogant. I'll cut you into pieces today. Who the *CK are you? How dare you talk big here? As the Scarlet Blood Guards, these great emperors only bullied others. They had never been despised like this before. It was simply unbearable. The secret cave could be tolerated, but the chrysanthemum could not. The great emperors were furious, but they were stopped by Xian Mu. Xian Mu was not as impulsive as the others. He was deeply shocked by the strength that Black Wolf had shown. Especially just now, the 10 blue-grade great emperors had entered the valley for 2 hours, but none of them came out. It was conceivable that the 10 blue-grade great emperors were dead. It was precisely because of this. Before he had full confidence, Dazzling Eye would certainly not dare to act rashly. As the saying goes, if you often walk by the river, how can your shoes not get wet? Senior brother Dazzling Eye, are you really going to tolerate this? Everyone had already despised Dazzling Eyes to the extreme because if they followed Chen Yi Lao, they would not be like this. They would have already gone up and dismembered Black Wolf. But now, if not for their dazzling status and strength, these so-called members of the Red Blood Guards would have already rebelled. Ha ha ha, dazzling is dazzling. You're as timid as a mouse. Longao laughed mockingly a few times, then continued to say, Red Blood Guards? Why don't we call them blood pool rats? Ha 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 ha. Without further ado, Longao turned around and returned to the valley, disappearing without a trace. I can't fucking stand it. Kill. If I don't kill this person, I swear I'm not human. Everyone could not stand it anymore and rushed into the valley angrily. Things had already come to this point. If they could continue to tolerate it, then they would not be the Red Blood Guards. Dazzling Eye wanted to stop everyone, but it was too late. The remaining 80 great emperors rushed into the valley. Staring at the valley in front of him, Dazzling Eye pondered for a while. In the end, he still chose not to enter the valley. In the end, Dazzling Eye was still afraid. Otherwise, he would not have been humiliated like this. In the valley, 80 great emperors rushed in. Longao could not stand it. However, he could take advantage of this opportunity to eliminate all of them in one fell swoop. At that time, it would be easy to deal with Dazzling Eye alone. Longao relied on the 4 great formations to deal with the 80 great emperors. The great emperors below the purple level could not withstand the formations. In just a few seconds, they were torn apart by the formations. As for the black, white, and gold great emperors, their strength was still quite strong. Even the formations could not take care of them in a short time. Moreover, the strongest among Chen Yi's men were the black grade great emperors. Only Dazzling Eye was a gold grade great emperor. Time passed by slowly. In the blink of an eye, the day had passed and the night had fallen. The pitch-black valley was extremely eerie and terrifying. Outside the valley, at this moment, Dazzling Eye's face was extremely gloomy and ugly. 80 great emperors had entered the valley and had yet to come out. The result was obvious. Dazzling Eye was very depressed. 90 great emperors had all fallen. When Chen Yi returned, how was he going to explain it to him? One should know that the red blood guards were Chen Yi's heart. Not to mention losing 90 of them, even losing one member would make Chen Yi's heart ache. The more he thought about it, the more depressed he felt. Black Wolf, where are they? Looking at the black wolf that suddenly appeared in front of him, Chen Yi was very cautious. Until now, he still did not know how the black wolf did it. Dazzling Eye, take a guess. Guess your sister. Black Wolf, don't think that you can do whatever you want just because you're playing some tricks. I can tell you clearly that you're not even a fart in my eyes. If you're a man, then have a fair fight with me. Why do you have to be so sneaky? Dazzling Eye was scared. The mockery on Longao's face became more intense. He sneered and said, Dazzling Eye, a fair fight. Hundreds of you are chasing after me. You call this a fair fight? Dazzling Eye was speechless after being questioned by Black Wolf. They were indeed in the wrong. After all, hundreds of people were chasing after one person. No matter what, this wasn't a fair fight. Dazzling Eye, I'll give you a chance. Enter the valley and fight with me. If you win, not only will my life be in your hands, I'll also give you my divine weapon. But if you lose, leave your life behind. How about it? Divine weapon? Dazzling Eye certainly knew what it meant to have Black Wolf's spatial divine weapon. If he didn't want it, then he must be lying. Not to mention him, even Shangguan Yi wouldn't be able to resist such a temptation. Dazzling Eye had seen Black Wolf's sudden disappearance with his own eyes. Dazzling Eye certainly wouldn't care if it was a normal time or an ordinary cultivator. But Black Wolf's situation was completely different. After all, hundreds of great sovereign cultivators were all killed by this person. How could Dazzling Eye not be afraid? Black Wolf, cut the crap. We can have a fight, but not in the valley. Let's go according to what you said just now. If you dare to accept my challenge, we'll fight here. Dazzling Eye still didn't dare to enter the valley. Longao certainly knew this. Chapter 996. Alright, I agree to fight you here. Hey! Dazzling Moo was surprised because he never thought that Black Wolf would actually agree to fight him. The more confident Longao was, the less confident Dazzling Moo was. From Dazzling Moo's point of view, the reason why Black Wolf was so powerful was because there was something wrong with the valley. Otherwise, why would Black Wolf not dare to leave the valley? Why would he lure them into the valley again and again? One should know that more than 90 great emperors were killed by Black Wolf just because they entered the valley. Black Wolf's sudden agreement made Dazzling Moo a little confused. He didn't know what Black Wolf was planning. However, Black Wolf had already agreed to fight. If he went back on his words, wouldn't he be telling Black Wolf that he was a complete coward? Taking a step back, Dazzling Moo stared at Black Wolf in front of him. In the end, Dazzling Moo was still full of confidence. He was a gold-grade Great Emperor while his opponent was only a green-grade Great Emperor. The gap between the two was huge. They weren't even on the same level. Black Wolf, you're courting death. You can't blame anyone else. Just you. Longao sneered as if he didn't put Dazzling Moo in his eyes. All of a sudden, Longao took out the Silent Extinction Divine Bow and said with a smile, Dazzling Moo, as long as I draw the bow, you'll be dead. Dazzling Moo was shocked when he saw the broken bow in Black Wolf's hand. He had heard that Black Wolf relied on this divine bow to kill great emperors. Before Dazzling Moo could say anything, Longao took back the Silent Extinction Divine Bow. Don't worry, I'll fight you fairly. I just want to tell you that not everyone is a scum, trash, and beast like you. Dazzling Moo's expression turned ugly when he heard Black Wolf's ridicule. Longao took out the Nirvana Divine Bow this time just to scare Dazzle. According to his strength, even if he used the Annihilation Divine Bow, he could only kill a green-grade Great Emperor. If he was lucky, he could only kill a blue-grade Great Emperor. As for Dazzling Eye, he was a genuine gold-grade Great Emperor. Even the Nirvana Divine Bow could not kill Dazzle. Outside the valley, Longao and Shen Mu stood face to face. Both of them clearly knew that the loser of this battle would stay here forever. He couldn't do it again. The other party was magical and could interfere with space fluctuations. Longao was very clear that it seemed impossible to use space teleportation to deal with Dazzling. This battle was unavoidable. Longao stomped his right foot, and his entire body shot out in an instant. Before the person arrived, the sword chi arrived first. At the same time that the dragon roared, the sword energy swept out. Even Dazzle was shocked. In the blink of an eye, Longao and Dazzle were engaged in a fierce battle. The two exchanged 10 moves in an instant. Dazzle was a gold-grade Great Emperor after all. In just 10 moves, he had already forced Longao to retreat. If it was any other green-grade Great Emperor, they would have died in Dazzle's hands. However, even Longao could not withstand it. The difference in cultivation realm could not be made up by other things. With regards to this point, how could Longao not know? In this battle, he was just putting on an act. His real intention was to lure Dazzle into the valley and kill him with the help of the 4 formations. Because of this, Longao did not choose to fight Dazzle head-on. Gradually, the two of them shot towards the valley. With their speed, they could enter the valley at any time. At that time, with the power of the formations, killing Dazzle would be a matter of minutes. However, Dazzle was no fool. He would not enter the valley casually. The more Longao acted this way, the more Dazzle felt that something was amiss. Otherwise, why would Black Wolf try to lure him into the valley time and time again? If there was nothing fishy about the valley, he would not believe it even if he was beaten to death. Just like that, Longao and Dazzle were in a stalemate. In fact, Dazzle was still wary of Longao. Otherwise, with his strength, how could he let Longao hold on for so long? Boom boom boom. Boom boom boom. All of a sudden. Suddenly, a terrifying sound of thunder resounded between heaven and earth. Looking up at the thunderclouds in the sky, Longao's heart suddenly became happy. Dazzle saw Hei Lang's expression and seemed to be very surprised. He did not know why Longao was so happy when the thunderclouds appeared. Longao had set up 4 formations. Borrowing the power of heaven and earth, he was prepared to kill these great emperor martial artists. However, Longao was clear that if Dazzle did not enter the valley, he would not be able to do it. Thinking about it, in the end, Longao and Long Fu discussed and decided to borrow the power of the 9 heavens thunder to kill Dazzle in one fell swoop. Long Fu predicted that the thunder would come at this time. And indeed, it came. At times, Longao even suspected that Long Fu was a divine fortune teller. After all, Long Fu could predict the thunder of heaven and earth. Even if he was not a divine fortune teller, he could at least look down on others. But in the end, Master, hurry up and leave this place. Someone is causing trouble. Someone is causing trouble. Longao understood Long Fu's intentions immediately. Not daring to be careless, he slashed out fiercely with his sword. Turning around, he prepared to return to the valley. As long as he could return to the formation, he would be safe. However, Longao's thoughts were too simple. The thunder and lightning had already locked onto his aura. Even if it was Dazzle, he would still be able to avoid it. Dazzle's expression was extremely dignified. He was not sure what the thunder and lightning meant. After a while, Dazzle was finally sure that the thunder and lightning had locked onto Black Wolf. His heart was instantly overjoyed. Dazzle immediately retreated 100 steps because the power of the thunder and lightning was too strong. If he was caught in the crossfire, he would not even have the chance to cry. However, Dazzle never thought that even the heavens would help him. The thunder and lightning had locked onto Black Wolf for no reason. Even if Black Wolf was strong, he would not be able to contend against the 9 heavens thunder. Long Fu, what happened? Master, it's a Nirvana realm warrior. F***ck hearing Long Fu's words, Longao cursed in his heart. Longao naturally knew what it meant to be a Nirvana realm warrior. With his current strength, not to mention a Nirvana realm warrior, even a Great Emperor realm warrior would be extremely difficult. Longao could not figure out who wanted to deal with him. After all, in the entire Tianwu continent, there were only a few Nirvana realm warriors. Who could it be? Could it be Long Di Tian? Or Tong Tiendi? Or the Heaven and Earth sect's patriarch, Yi Gudu? The old ancestor had once said that Yi Gudu was not a good person. If it were not for the old ancestor, Yi Gudu would have already controlled him. Who could it be? After thinking for a while, Longao still could not figure out who wanted to kill him. If it was really a Nirvana realm warrior, then there was no need to borrow the power of the thunder and lightning. In a direct confrontation, he could definitely kill him in an instant. P.S. Today is a busy day. Buy a stove and start a fire. Winter is coming. Everyone, please forgive me. Go and rest. Tomorrow, we will continue. Chapter 997. Between Heaven and Earth. Thunderclouds surged and terrifying thunder resounded throughout the world. Bolts of lightning that were as thick as tree trunks rumbled and flashed in the sky. One could feel the terror of the lightning just by looking at it, not to mention being in the area. Longao did not continue to struggle because he knew that if it was a Nirvana realm martial artist, everything would be in vain. Who is it? No one answered. Since you are here, why are you sneaking around? Finally, there was a response. A heavy snort resounded between heaven and earth along with the thunder and lightning. Hearing the snort, Dazzle's face lit up. Longao's face instantly turned cold. Whether it was Dazzle or Longao, both of them had already guessed who it was. Because of this, Longao could not figure out when Shangguan had become a Nirvana realm martial artist. Wasn't she a supreme divine path martial artist? Now was not the time to dwell on this question. A figure flashed. Shangguan stood on top of the thunderclouds, looking down coldly at Black Wolf, who was targeted by the lightning. Black Wolf, I want to see how you can escape from my hands today. Nirvana realm martial artists were extremely close to the peak of martial arts. Just by looking at how Shangguan could control lightning, one could see how powerful a Nirvana realm martial artist was. Shangguan looked at him as if he was an ant. With a light stroke of his right hand, the thunderclouds flipped. With a rumbling sound, accompanied by the sound of thunder and lightning, it directly struck towards Longao. If it was an ordinary martial artist, the power of this lightning would be enough to destroy any martial artist. But what about Longao? Longao was shocked to find that he could no longer enter the dragon seal space. Sure enough, Shangguan came prepared this time. This was big trouble. Longao could clearly feel the power of Shangguan. Even if it was just a casual palm, the lightning was enough to destroy the world. It was too terrifying. Space-time wheel. In Longao's mind, he could only think of the space-time wheel. No matter what, the other party's strength was too strong. Relying on his own strength, He didn't even have the chance to fight back, unless he used the spacetime wheel. Longao was confident that as long as he used the spacetime wheel, even if Shangguan Yi was a Nirvana realm martial artist, he could still forcefully open the spacetime wheel and leave this place. As for forcefully opening the spacetime, it was unknown whether he would live or die. However, Longao did not choose to use the spacetime wheel in the end. The reason was simple. Longao wasn't sure if he could survive once he broke through spacetime. Therefore, he wouldn't use the so-called Wheel of Time unless he had no other choice. Emperor Dragon 9 kills. In the end, Longao chose to use his fists to meet force with force and forcefully receive the power of the lightning. Emperor Dragon's 9 slaughter, Emperor Dragon's raging waves, Emperor Dragon's heaven burial, Emperor Dragon's strangulation, Emperor Dragon's dominance, Emperor Dragon's collapse, Emperor Dragon's meteor explosion, Emperor Dragon's heart devour, Emperor Dragon's devour, Emperor Dragon's skybreak. 9 kills, 9 dragon roars, 9 fist force. As the dragon roars continued to resound, the fist force continued to stack, one punch after another. In the blink of an eye, the 9 punches had been stacked. At this moment, Longao's right fist was filled with power and it suddenly smashed out. The terrifying fist force smashed into the lightning. Was Black Wolf's brain flooded with water? Seeing Black Wolf take the initiative to attack the deputy chief, Dazzling Moo was completely stunned. He couldn't figure out what gave Black Wolf such courage. In Dazzling Moo's opinion, Black Wolf was simply courting death. At the same time, Dazzling Moo was also shocked by Shangguan Yi's strength. As the deputy chief of the alliance, Shangguan Yi's strength was unfathomable. However, no one had seen it before. When Dazzling Moo saw it for the first time, he was completely stunned. Was this the supreme divine path? Dazzling Moo had also heard about the legends of Nirvana realm martial artists. However, he didn't dare to imagine that the deputy chief of the alliance was a legendary Nirvana realm martial artist. Shangguan Yi seemed to be a little surprised by Longao's sudden attack. He snorted coldly. Shangguan Yi just casually threw out this attack. He didn't use his true strength at all. Boom! There was a loud sound. Longao's Emperor Dragon 9 kills instantly shattered the lightning. However, Longao didn't have any intention of stopping. He directly shot towards Shangguan Yi, who was above the thunderclouds. You're courting death. Seeing Black Wolf coming towards him, Shangguan Yi's face instantly turned cold. This was because Black Wolf was obviously provoking him. If he didn't kill this person, how could he keep his face? Master, stop immediately. Long Fu was also a little dumbfounded. No one expected Longao to suddenly take the initiative to attack. A great Emperor realm martial artist taking the initiative to attack a Nirvana realm martial artist was like being afraid of touching a mountain. Other than overestimating his own strength, it was more of a reckless act. Longao didn't care. Since he was going to die anyway, he might as well go crazy. Longao really wanted to test the strength of a Nirvana realm martial artist. This time, Longao didn't just integrate the Emperor Dragon 9 kills, he also integrated gravity and space. This punch could be considered as the most powerful punch that Longao had ever launched. This punch was so terrifying. Not to mention a great Emperor realm martial artist of the same level, even a green-grade great Emperor realm martial artist might not dare to fight Longao head-on. However, Longao was now facing a Nirvana realm martial artist. Shangguan Yi stood coldly above the thunderclouds. His body emitted a strong murderous aura that surrounded him. When Longao was about to hit him, Shangguan Yi sent out another palm strike. This time, he obviously used some of his strength. This palm strike was like a mountain pressing down. Longao's fist force was instantly suppressed and disappeared without a trace. In the end, a great Emperor realm martial artist didn't even have the chance to attack before a Nirvana realm martial artist. This was the difference between a Nirvana realm martial artist and a great Emperor realm martial artist. The difference was like heaven and earth. Go to hell. Longao was pressured to the point that his 7 orifices were bleeding. His life and death were at stake. He could be killed by Shangguan Yi at any time. Xian Mu looked at the scene from afar. While he was shocked, he was also pleasantly surprised. From the beginning to the end, he didn't expect that Shangguan Yi would suddenly appear here. If Shangguan Yi was here, he wouldn't be able to kill Black Wolf. Just when Xian Mu and Shangguan Yi both thought that Black Wolf would definitely die. In the heavens and earth. Suddenly, there was the sound of sword chi. Before the two of them could react to what had happened, a sword chi appeared out of nowhere. The sword chi spanned across the sky and stood directly above the thunderclouds. There wasn't even the slightest fluctuation in the aura. The thunderclouds along with the energy disappeared completely. Looking at the middle-aged man who suddenly appeared in front of him, standing with his hands behind his back like a sword piercing through the 9 heavens, Shangguan Yi said solemnly, "Emperor Ken. P.S. I originally wanted to rest, but after thinking about it, I clenched my teeth and wrote another chapter. I hope everyone can count the votes." Chapter 998. Emperor Ken. The Sword Sect Master, Murong Guenar. Shangguan Yi had never expected that the Sword Sect Master, Emperor Ken, Murong Guenar, would suddenly appear when Black Wolf was about to die. "Yi, long time no see. How have you been?" No matter how unhappy Shangguan Yi was, he was still the Sword Sect Master, who was at the same level as the leader of the Martial Artists Alliance. Shangguan Yi could not compare to him in terms of status and strength. He bowed. Shangguan Yi smiled and said, "Murong Master, what do you mean?" What did he mean? He asked the obvious. Murong Guenar said with a smile, "Yi, to be honest, Black Wolf and I have some connections. I hope you can do me a favor today. I want to take Black Wolf away. What do you think?" Hearing Murong Guenar's words, Shangguan Yi was extremely angry, but he did not dare to say anything. Shangguan Yi knew very well that although his cultivation had reached the Nirvana realm, he was nothing compared to the Sword Sect Master in front of him. If they really fought, he would not be a match for Murong Guenar. Even the leader of the Martial Artists Alliance might not be able to defeat the Sword Sect Master in front of him, let alone him. Emperor Ken, Murong Guenar, was a super figure in the top 5 of the Heaven Roll. That was why. How could Shangguan Yi refuse when Emperor Ken personally asked him for Black Wolf? However, Shangguan Yi was not willing to give up. Now that things had come to this, he could kill Black Wolf. Not only could he get rid of all future troubles, but he could also take revenge. "Murong Master, this is our family matter. What's more, Black Wolf killed a disciple of my family. He waved his hand. Murong Guenar was clearly getting impatient. No matter what, he was still the Sword Sect Master, one of the top existences of the Martial Heaven continent. He had spoken nicely just now to show respect to Shangguan Yi, as well as Tong Tiendi and the Martial Artists Alliance. However, Shangguan Yi didn't give him face at all. Even if Shangguan Yi was a Nirvana realm warrior, Emperor Ken did not put him in his eyes. As long as Murong Guenar was willing, he could make Shangguan Yi stay at any time, and he could make him stay forever. "Shangguan Yi, this is the Sword Sect, not the Martial Artists Alliance. I'm giving you face, so you'd better accept it. Otherwise, don't be so shameless." Before Shangguan Yi could react, Murong Guenar suddenly shouted angrily, "Get out of here. Get out of my sight. I gave you face, but you didn't want it." If it was an ordinary person, would he dare to speak to Shangguan Yi like this? Shangguan Yi was the vice leader of the Martial Artists Alliance, and a Nirvana realm warrior. Although he was not the top existence in the world, no one dared to provoke him. If it was an ordinary person, he would have died long ago. But now. The person who had scolded him was Emperor Ken, Sword Sect Master Murong Guenar, a super figure who did not put him in his eyes at all. Shangguan Yi did not have any temper, and could only leave with his tail between his legs. Dazzling Mu, who was hiding at the side, did not dare to stay any longer and quietly left. In fact, Emperor Ken had already noticed Dazzling Mu's existence from the beginning to the end. However, in Murong Guenar's eyes, such a small figure like Dazzling Mu was even less important. In the sword sect master's eyes, if he killed Dazzling Mu, wouldn't he be laughed at by others? Longao knelt on one knee. His eyes were red, and his body was on the verge of collapsing. Longao had just been almost killed by Shangguan Yi, and he was seriously injured. Fortunately, Murong Guenar had arrived in time. Otherwise, it was unknown whether he would still be standing here. Again, the strength of a Nirvana realm warrior was too strong. With a pale face, Longao stood up with difficulty and looked at the middle-aged man who had already walked in front of him. Longao seemed to be very surprised, because he had already guessed the identity of Murong Guenar. Sword Sect Master, Emperor Ken, one of the most powerful people in the Tianwu continent. His strength was comparable to the leader of the Martial Artists Alliance, and the patriarch of the Long family. Murong Master, thank you. Longao was very clear that if Murong Guenar hadn't appeared in time, he wouldn't have been able to survive from Shangguan Yi. Strictly speaking, Murong Guenar should be his savior. Black Wolf. I am Longao. There wasn't the slightest bit of surprise. It was as if Murong Guenar had already guessed the other party's identity, but he was waiting for Longao to say it himself. Longao, are you all right? In the next second, Longao felt a terrifying power entering his body. His body, which was seriously injured just a moment ago, had already recovered by 70% in just a few seconds. He believed that 3 days would be enough for him to return to his peak state. This was the strength of a Nirvana realm martial artist. Longao was very clear that the sword sect master standing in front of him, Emperor Ken, Murong Guenar, was even more powerful than Shangguan Yi. Thank you. You don't have to be so polite with me. If you feel better, we can talk. Longao nodded. With Murong Guenar's help, he had almost recovered. Whenever he thought about what had happened just now, he would feel a little scared. Nirvana realm martial artist. Until now, he had never thought that Shangguan Yi would actually be a Nirvana realm martial artist. The legendary Nirvana realm. All this time, Longao had thought that Shangguan Yi was only a supreme divine realm martial artist, and that the leader of the Martial Artists Alliance, Tong Tiandi, and the patriarch of the Long family, Long Di Tian, were the true super-existences who had broken through to the Nirvana realm. In the end, he had underestimated Shangguan Yi. The two of them found a secluded area and sat down on 2 rocks. At this time, Longao took the lead and asked, Murong Master, what is going on? Murong Guenar obviously knew what Longao was asking about. He smiled and said, Yanga and I just wanted to visit the people below. As you know, the mountain is high and the emperor is far away. But this time, we met you, which is a surprise. So that's why. Longao didn't continue to dwell on this question. After all, it was fate that he and Murong Guenar met. As for why Murong Guenar would help him this time, he didn't know. He believed that only Murong Guenar knew about this. Emperor Ken, Murong Guenar, Sword Sect Master, one of the super characters of the 10 Tripod. Longao, is there a grudge between you and Shangguan Yi? Murong Guenar obviously didn't know about Longao's affairs. Otherwise, he wouldn't have asked this question. No one knew that Longao had changed his name to Black Wolf and joined the Martial Artists Alliance. Longao nodded. Since things had already come to this point, he didn't continue to hide it. He told Murong Guenar about the grudge between him and Shangguan Yi in full detail. As for some of the things that he chose to hide, he still wasn't sure whether Murong Guenar was an enemy or a friend. It was better to be safe than sorry. Chapter 999. I see. Murong Guenar did not doubt him at all. In his opinion, there was no need for Longao to lie. Longao, do you know why Shangguan Yi refuses to let you go? He shook his head. Longao really did not know about this. Under normal circumstances, given Shangguan Yi's status and strength, there seemed to be no need for her to bite him so hard. Taking a step back. Even if Shangguan Yi did not want him to stay, she had already sent Qian Yi and Xian Mu. Why did she have to do it herself? Longao, if I'm not wrong, The biggest reason why Shangguan Yi refuses to let you go is because of Tang Hao. Tang Hao? After thinking about it, Longao instantly understood Murong Guenar's meaning. It was very simple. Tang Hao and Shangguan Yi were definitely not on good terms. The two of them had been fighting openly and secretly, and he was the fuse. If Shangguan Yi did not kill him, she would lose the fight. It seems that I'm in big trouble. Shangguan Yi, although not a good person, her strength and talent are not to be underestimated. Murong Feng looked at the young man in front of him, his face was full of admiration. Longao was definitely the first person who dared to take the initiative to attack in front of a Nirvana Realm martial artist. Shangguan Yi, Nirvana Realm. Longao, although you have avoided a disaster for now, I can be sure that Shangguan Yi will not let you go. Have you thought about what you want to do next? Longao knew what Murong Guenar meant. Shangguan Yi was too dangerous. He could not be so lucky all the time. If he relaxed a little, he would be doomed eternally. Murong Master, to be honest, my destination this time is the Sword Sect. Murong Guenar nodded. He had already guessed this, but he did not know why Longao went to the Sword Sect. Murong Guenar did not ask because he was waiting for Longao to speak. I came here this time mainly to challenge the various Sword Dao martial artists and verify my identity as a disciple of the martial Dao. My cultivation has reached a bottleneck and I need to constantly challenge myself and start with the Sword Dao. At this point, Longao did not continue, because his meaning was very clear, and he believed that Murong Guenar definitely understood. Longao, are you a Sword Dao martial artist? Murong Guenar was very surprised. It was common knowledge. In the Sky Martial Continent, only the disciples of the Sword Sect would major in the Sword Dao. After all, even if an outsider wanted to cultivate the Sword Dao, without sword arts and Sword Dao martial skills, it would be very difficult to reach a certain height. Murong Guenar had some understanding of Longao. If he did not have the confidence to challenge the various Sword Dao martial artists, would Longao dare to do so? A madman who dared to take the initiative to attack a Nirvana Realm martial artist. Nodding, then shaking his head. Longao nodded, then shook his head, which made Murong Guenar puzzled again, not knowing what he meant. Murong Master, to be honest, I do not major in the Sword Dao, but I am very interested in the Sword Dao. Therefore, I came this time to verify my Sword Dao and hope to have a breakthrough. Attack me with your sword. Longao was very clear that Murong Guenar wanted to test his Sword Dao cultivation. After resting for an hour, Longao felt that his injuries had more or less recovered. It was all thanks to Murong Guenar, otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Longao stood up and took a deep breath. Longao did not plan to use the God-punishing sword. It was better to be safe than sorry. If the God-punishing sword was recognized by Murong Guenar, who knew what would happen? No matter what, the legend of the God-punishing sword was there. He believed that even an existence like Murong Guenar would not be able to resist the temptation. Longao was not willing to continue making enemies. Using his finger as a sword, Longao fused the God-punishing sword and the Emperor Dragon's 9 slaughter into his finger. It looked like a casual finger attack, but Longao was very clear that this attack was his full-strength attack. He wanted to display his Sword Dao cultivation in front of Murong Guenar. Longao was very clear that in the martial heaven continent, when it came to Sword Dao cultivation, there was probably no one who could contend against Murong Guenar. Murong Guenar was nicknamed Emperor Ken. It was easy to imagine just how terrifying Murong Guenar's Sword Dao cultivation was. Longao had already thought about it. If he could get Murong Feng Nyan's guidance, he believed that it would definitely bring about indescribable benefits to his sword cultivation. Murong Guenar. Seeing that Longao was preparing to use his finger as a sword, he hadn't paid much attention at first. In his opinion, as an outsider, even if Longao's talent was not bad, his Sword Dao cultivation shouldn't be that high. Let alone Murong Guenar, he believed that no matter who it was, they would all think the same. But in the next second, seeing that Longao was already prepared to use his finger as a sword, Murong Guenar's expression became grave. That was because with his strength and his perception of the sword Dao, he was very clear that Longao had already reached a very high level in the sword Dao. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, it would have been hard to imagine. Swoosh! Longao was ready to use his finger as a sword. An invisible sword chi broke out, causing the surrounding air to tremble slightly. This sword chi caused Murong Guenar to stand up. He viewed Longao with even greater importance. Sect Master Murong, I wonder how my sword Dao cultivation is. Longao truly didn't know the level of his sword Dao cultivation. After all, he wasn't a disciple of the sword sect, and he hadn't spent all his time studying the sword Dao. However, at his side, he had the #1 sword Dao expert of the martial heaven continent, Emperor Ken, and the sword sect master, Murong Guenar. Longao, if I were to make you a disciple of the sword sect and you were to become my disciple, would you be willing? Longao was delighted. Although Murong Guenar hadn't said anything, Murong Guenar's every action had already shown that his sword Dao cultivation had entered the eyes of this sword Dao expert. However, becoming Murong Guenar's disciple, joining the sword sect, and becoming a disciple of the sword sect was something that Longao had never thought about. He was already a member of the Martial Artists Alliance. If he continued to be a disciple of the sword sect and the dragon sect, wouldn't that be a bit too unkind? Whether or not Murong Guenar was willing, Longao was truly unwilling. Murong Master, I'm sorry, but I've already joined the Martial Artists Alliance. Furthermore, I already have my own sect, so, waving his hand, Murong Guenar didn't wait for Longao to finish speaking. However, he wasn't the slightest bit angry. Instead, he smiled. You're right. This matter is indeed unsuitable. However, Longao, although you can't become a member of the sword sect, you can become one of the sword sect's consecrators. Normally, you have your own place. As long as the sword sect is in trouble, you can appear. What do you think? Chapter 1000. Could he refuse? Longao was very clear that Murong Yanga had already said so much. If he continued to refuse, he wouldn't be giving face to the other party. However, Emperor Ken, as the sword sect master, would condescend to personally invite him. This was something that was very unlikely. After thinking for a while. In the end. Longao agreed in the end. If that's the case, then I'll accept deferentially. With a happy expression, Murong Guenar said with a smile, Longao, since your destination this time is the sword sect, then follow me back. I'll arrange for you to challenge the disciples of the sword sect. Murong Guenar had obviously sensed Longao's current strength. Green-grade Great Emperor Realm? In just a few months, the other party had broken through from Saint Emperor Realm to green-grade Great Emperor Realm. Such cultivation speed was a little too terrifying. Murong Guenar believed that there wasn't anyone in the sword sect who had the talent to compete with Longao. Due to various reasons, Murong Guenar wanted to rope in Longao, hoping to become friends and not enemies. Murong Guenar was almost certain that with Longao's talent and potential, his future would be limitless. All right. Longao couldn't be happier. The previous events were still vivid in his mind. Who knew if Shangguan Iya had left? If she hadn't and Murong Guenar had left, then wouldn't he be a lamb in a tiger's den? If the Emperor Ken was here, even if Shangguan Iya was given 10,000 guts, he believed that Shangguan Iya wouldn't dare to appear again. Just like that. Longao left with Murong Guenar and headed towards the sword sect. The two of them weren't too far away from the sword sect. It would take about 4 to 6 hours. If they hurried, it would take at most 2 hours. However, with Murong Guenar's speed, they would be back in 3 minutes. In the distance, Shangguan Iya's face was extremely gloomy as she watched the two people gradually disappear. Her face was as ugly as it could get. Deputy Chief Shangguan, what should we do now? This time, they had lost over 100 great emperors. Qian Mu was worried to the extreme. Qian Yi still hadn't returned. He didn't dare to imagine what would happen if Qian Yi returned. How was he going to explain this to Qian Yi? Shangguan Yi seemed to be able to read Xian Mu's mind. She said, "It's not your fault this time. Keep an eye on this man and don't leave. If you lose Black Wolf, I won't let you see tomorrow's sun." He was overjoyed. Dazzling's heart turned cold when he heard the Vice Leader's last sentence. "Vice Alliance Master, I know what to do. Black Wolf sure is lucky. He actually managed to lure out the Emperor Ken. The Emperor Ken, the Sword Sect Master. Whether it was in terms of strength or background, they were all there." Dazzling didn't continue talking nonsense because he could sense the terrifying murderous aura coming from Shangguan Yi. Who knew if he would be implicated? "Where's Chen Yi?" Dazzling didn't dare to hide anything. He told her everything that had happened. After listening, Shangguan Yi nodded and said, "It seems that Black Wolf's spatial artifact is very powerful." After saying that, Shangguan Yi's body suddenly disappeared. Dazzling shrugged helplessly. Since things had come to this point, he had no choice but to follow her. If he wasn't afraid, then he must be lying. No matter what, Emperor Ken and the Sword Sect's strength were there. If he was discovered, he would definitely die. In other words, he was gambling with his life. After all, Shangguan Yi had already said so. How could he refuse? Sword Sect Mountain, the headquarters of the Sword Sect. The Sword Sect was one of the 10 great factions. It was definitely the strongest existence in the Tianwu continent. Just like the other superpowers, no one dared to cause trouble around the Sword Sect. Otherwise, they would definitely be killed by the Sword Sect. Everyone in the Sword Sect, from the Sword Sect Master Murong Guenar to the disciples who swept the floor, all of them majored in the Sword Dao. The Sword Dao was another type of cultivation for martial artists. Most of the time, Sword Dao martial artists were very powerful. In other words, Sword Dao martial artists were slightly stronger than other martial artists of the same level. This was just like Emperor Ken. When he used one with the sword, his strength was even greater than Tong Tiandi's. Kensi, the Sword Sect's biggest city. Its prosperity was comparable to that of an emperor city. Longao and Murong Guenar were originally going to return to Kensi together. However, as soon as they arrived, Murong Guenar had an important matter to attend to and left, leaving only Longao to enter Kensi alone. However, before Murong Guenar left, he gave a token to Longao. It was the symbol of the Sword Sect's consecration. Within the Sword Sect, the status of a consecration was very high. Unless the elders or the master personally came, no one could keep a consecration in check. However, not everyone could become a consecration. At the very least, with Longao's current strength, he did not have the qualifications to become a consecration. Longao was almost certain that if he entered the Sword Sect and the other disciples of the Sword Sect found out, he would have endless troubles. Because of this, Longao did not immediately go to the Sword Sect. Instead, he first entered Kensi to take a look. After all, there were many Sword Dao warriors in Kensi. He could first challenge these so-called Sword Dao warriors. When the time was right, it would not be too late to enter the Sword Sect. Kensi was very big. Its prosperity was comparable to that of an emperor city, or even greater. Humph! In front of Kensi, Longao suddenly stopped. This was because he had sensed that Xian Mu had been following him. However, he did not expose Xian Mu. After all, with Emperor Ken's strength, he could also sense it. However, Murong Guenar also did not say anything. Since he was here, he might as well stay. Longao turned around and looked to the left. He smiled and said, "Xian Mu, since you're here, why are you sneaking around? Why don't you come out and meet me?" Since things had already reached this point, Xian Mu did not continue to hide. He slowly walked out and sneered, "Black Wolf, you're lucky this time. If Emperor Ken did not appear, you would be dead by now." Fuck, he cursed in his heart. "Xian Mu, are you an idiot? If you were not lucky in everything, you would be dead by now. I forgot to tell you that if Shangguan Yi did not appear in time, you would be a corpse slave now." Hearing this, Xian Mu's face was filled with anger. However, this was Kensi after all, not the Martial Artists Alliance. If he dared to attack Black Wolf here, even if the sword sect killed him, the Martial Artists Alliance would not say anything. A gold-level Great Emperor warrior might have a high status in a small force. However, in the great balance of 10 forces, a gold-level Great Emperor warrior was nothing. For the sake of peace between two forces, it was normal to lose a gold-level Great Emperor warrior when necessary. Because of this, Shenmue said coldly, "Black Wolf, do you think you can leave Kenzie alive?" Chapter 1001. I don't know if I can leave Kenzie alive, but I know that you won't dare to act presumptuously here. Contempt. It was a blatant disdain. It seemed that in Longao's eyes, Dazzle was nothing in his eyes. As a gold-grade Great Emperor, how could Dazzle endure it? However, Dazzle endured it in the end. The reason was simple. Black Wolf's past actions were still vivid in his mind. Again, one cannot be reckless. After all, Black Wolf could not be seen as an ordinary person. Black Wolf, I will let you die without a burial place. After saying that, Dazzle turned and left. In the blink of an eye, he had disappeared without a trace. Longao did not chase after him. He clearly knew that with his current strength, unless he set up a formation and used the right time, place and people, it was impossible to defeat Dazzle. Moreover, he came to the Sword Sect this time mainly to challenge Sword Dao martial artists, to test his Sword Dao cultivation, and to strive for a breakthrough. As for Dazzle, if there was a chance, he would not let him go. Without further hesitation, Longao strode forward and walked towards Kenzie. Kenzie. Countless people came and went on the streets. Without a doubt, in Kenzie, many people carried a sword on their back. This was the characteristic of Sword Dao martial artists. On the way to the Sword Sect, Longao had already thought about this problem. In the following days, he would challenge countless Sword Dao martial artists. Would he have to use the god-slaying sword every time? That was precisely the reason. Longao was prepared to find a sword to replace it. Unless it was a last resort, he would not use the god-slaying sword. Longao was very confused. He did not know why Long Fu was looking for him at this time. Longao found a very secluded place and disappeared in the blink of an eye, entering the Dragon Seal space. In the Dragon Seal space. Long Fu, what happened? Longao knew very well that Long Fu knew that he would be very busy after entering Kenzie. If it wasn't for other matters, he believed that Long Fu would definitely not trouble him. What exactly was going on? Master, now that you have the god-slaying sword, what about the blood-sucking manic saber? Blood-sucking / If Long Fu didn't mention it, Longao really wouldn't have thought of the blood-sucking frenzy blade. This was because the power of the god-punishing sword and the god-punishing art was there. The blood-sucking frenzy blade and the god-punishing sword were not on the same level at all. Long Fu, what do you mean? Master, although the blood-sucking frenzied blade is not as good as the god-slaying sword, it would be a pity to throw it away. Longao didn't say anything. He knew that since Long Fu had said so, he would say more. Master, I've considered this matter. Why don't we refine the wild devouring blade and refine it into 9 wild devouring flying blades? At that time, as long as Master uses a powerful martial skill, the power will definitely be extraordinary. Hearing Long Fu's words, Longao was overjoyed. Next, Longao took out the blood-sucking frenzy blade. As for the refining problem, it was all left to Long Fu. Moreover, Long Fu imparted a new martial skill to Longao. This martial skill was specially prepared for the flying blades. In Kenzie, Longao sensed his surroundings. Kenzie was indeed worthy of being the largest city in the Sword Sect. In this place, powerful Sword Dao martial artists could be seen everywhere. Among them, even Great Emperor realm martial artists could be seen casually. The situation in Kenzie and the Emperor City were completely different. In the Emperor City, other than the Martial Artists Alliance, there were also 4 major clans that jointly controlled the entire Emperor City. However, Kenzie wasn't like that. This was because in Kenzie, There were no clans and it was personally controlled by the Sword Sect. It was very simple. The Sword Sect had set up 3 major clans in Kensi. All of them were disciples of the Sword Sect. In other words, the 3 major clans all belonged to the Sword Sect. This was completely different from the situation in the Emperor City. In the Emperor City, none of the 4 major clans belonged to the Martial Artists Alliance. Kensi, the Kim family, the Huang family, and the Yang family were the 3 major clans. According to rumors, the ancestors of the 3 major clans were all elders of the Sword Sect. In Kensi, the 3 major clans were practically local tyrants. This was because under normal circumstances, the Sword Sect wouldn't interfere with any matters in Kensi. The genius disciple of the Kim family, Kim Roman, had officially reached the Green Grade Great Emperor realm. Moreover, he was considered a well-known existence in the Sword Sect. When Longao first entered Kensi, he heard many legends about Kim Roman. Most importantly, Kim Roman was arrogant in battle. Moreover, he had already condensed the Sword Soul and Sword Soul. His overall strength was extremely powerful. Even a peak Green Grade Great Emperor realm martial artist wouldn't be a match for Kim Roman. Kim Roman. Longao was very clear that he couldn't enter the Sword Sect now. Therefore, he could only challenge the Sword Dao martial artists in Kensi. Kim Roman's strength was just right. Green Grade Great Emperor realm martial artist. Longao was now a Green Grade Great Emperor realm martial artist. It was almost useless to challenge Great Emperors of the same level or lower. If he were to challenge a Blue Grade Great Emperor realm martial artist or above, the gap would be huge. However, if he were to challenge a Green Grade Great Emperor realm martial artist, the effect would be just right. Moreover, according to rumors, Kim Roman had already condensed the Sword Soul and Sword Soul. Longao's goal had been set. That was to challenge Kim Roman first. Kensi, in a tea shop. Longao and Kim Roman sat at 2 separate tables. Both of them didn't speak and drank their own tea. In the end, Kim Roman said, "Within a year, countless people would challenge me. However, 99% of them would die in the challenge. Black Wolf, you're just a Green Grade Great Emperor realm martial artist. Let me give you a piece of advice. You should know your limits." Kim Roman was very surprised by Black Wolf's challenge. Because for so many years, as he became famous, countless people wanted to challenge him and become famous. However, there was almost no one who could defeat him. After all, Great Emperor realm martial artists above Blue Grade would almost never challenge him. "Kim Roman, I challenge you. Life or death is up to fate. Success or failure is up to the heavens. I will do my best. If that's the case, follow me." Kim Roman wasn't a kind man either. Moreover, he was arrogant in battle. He wouldn't give up on any challenge. After being challenged countless times, he would also challenge others countless times. This was because Kim Roman knew very well that as long as he continued to battle, his understanding of Sword Dao would deepen and his strength would become stronger. Kim Roman could be said to be a celebrity in Kensi. The slightest movement would immediately attract everyone's attention. This time was no exception. The news of Black Wolf's challenge to Kim Roman was spread around the entire Kensi in the blink of an eye. The crowd who wanted to watch a good show immediately lost interest when they heard that Black Wolf was just a Green Grade Great Emperor realm martial artist. This was because in everyone's opinion, a Green Grade Great Emperor realm martial artist who wanted to challenge Kim Roman was simply seeking death. Not to mention a Green Grade Great Emperor realm martial artist, even a peak Cyan Grade Great Emperor realm martial artist wouldn't be a match for Kim Roman. Chapter 1002. Inside Kensi. In the middle of the square, there was a huge stone platform. It was square and looked like a small mountain. Sword Discourse Arena, the place where Kensi challenged. In Kensi, no one was allowed to casually start a fight. The light punishment would be expelled from Kensi, and the heavy punishment would be directly killed without mercy. But as a warrior, it was impossible for there to be no friction. As a result, The three great families came up with this method. No matter who it was, as long as they went up to the sword discourse arena, regardless of life or death, even if it was a disciple of the three great families. On the sword discourse arena, Longao and Kim Roman faced each other, staring at each other. Very surprised. Longao realized that Kim Roman, who did not put him in his eyes before, seemed to have entered the state at this moment. Such a person was actually the most terrifying, and also worthy of respect. Black Wolf, if I'm not wrong, you shouldn't have condensed a sword soul and sword soul yet. Sword soul and sword soul were things that only warriors who majored in sword Dao could condense. Whether it was sword soul or sword soul, to a sword Dao warrior, it had extraordinary meaning and was also the guarantee of strength. Nodding. That's right, I really haven't condensed a sword soul and sword soul. Below the stage. Hearing Black Wolf's words, everyone was shocked. He hadn't even condensed a sword soul and sword soul, yet he still dared to challenge Kim Roman. He was simply courting death. In the crowd, the Kim family's disciples all ridiculed to the extreme and began to curse. Waving his hand, Kim Roman did not continue. The entire square was silent because everyone knew that once Kim Roman entered the battle, he would devote himself wholeheartedly. Even if the opponent was only a post-liminary realm warrior, Kim Roman would still be the same. Swoosh. Out of nowhere, a long sword appeared in Kim Roman's hand. His entire body also rushed out. Before he arrived, the sword chi had already begun to move. Longao didn't dare to be careless either. His opponent was a green-grade great monarch after all. He was also a sword Dao expert who had condensed a sword soul and a sword soul. Longao did not use the deity slaying sword, nor did he find a new sword. In the end, he could only use his fingers to replace the sword. Using the finger as a sword. Seeing Black Wolf's actions, everyone wanted to scold him. He was clearly provoking Kim Roman. He didn't take this kendo martial artist seriously at all. God-slaying art. Using his finger as a sword, his sword chi rampaged. In the blink of an eye, the two of them were already engaged in a great battle. Sword chi was everywhere, and the entire sword discourse arena was filled with sword chi. Not to mention personally facing it, just looking at it made one feel that the sword chi was abnormally terrifying. It was impossible for a green-grade great emperor to fight against a green-grade great emperor. But Black Wolf did it. Longao didn't just want to fight this battle. He came to the sword sect to challenge the experts of the way of the sword. He wanted to comprehend the way of the sword and hope that he could make a breakthrough. In other words, he had to start with sword Dao. Because of this, Longao kept pressuring himself. Kim Roman's strength was indeed powerful, especially when fighting with the sword. Even Longao was forced to retreat. If he let his guard down, he would be killed by the sword chi. Longao retreated step by step. Other than fighting, he tried to sense his opponent's usage of the way of the sword. When the earth elemental art and gravity space were unleashed, Longao also integrated the Emperor Dragon's 9 kills into his finger sword. Emperor Dragon's Raging Waves, Emperor Dragon's Heaven Burial, Emperor Dragon's Strangulation, Emperor Dragon's Dominance, Emperor Dragon's Collapse, Emperor Dragon's Meteor Explosion, Emperor Dragon's Heart Devour, Emperor Dragon's Devour, and Emperor Dragon's Heaven Breaker. At the same time, the sword chi kept stacking up. In an instant, the stacking was completed. Longao used almost all of his strength in this strike. He had already sensed his opponent's way of the sword, especially his sword soul and sword soul. Because of this, Longao was prepared to meet his opponent head-on. This way, he could comprehend the way of the sword more thoroughly. All right. Kim Roman knew what Black Wolf meant. Of course, he wouldn't be afraid if he chose to meet his opponent head-on. Not to mention the gap between their realms, Kim Roman had full confidence in his comprehension and cultivation of the way of the sword. Black Wolf couldn't compete with him. The sword chi fiercely collided with each other. Accompanied by the sound of a dragon's roar, Longao's body directly flew out. As for Jin Luo Wen, he continuously retreated 3 steps before forcibly stopping. He was shocked. Kim Roman didn't expect his opponent to be able to take his strike head-on. Kim Roman had full confidence in the power of his strike. Not to mention a green-grade Great Emperor, even a cyan-grade Great Emperor, or a peak cyan-grade Great Emperor, wouldn't be able to withstand it. At this moment, Longao felt the blood in his body churning. The sword chi started to run amok. This was the so-called sword chi. The strength of a way of the sword was too strong. It was Longao's first time facing an expert of the way of the sword. He was at a disadvantage. He stopped abruptly. His face was pale and his body was shaking as if he would fall at any time. Black Wolf, you lost. I didn't lose. I can continue to fight. Although Longao lost, the battle just now was very useful for Longao to comprehend the way of the sword. He finally knew how powerful the way of the sword was. Since you want to die, I'll grant you your wish. Kim Roman thought he had won the battle just now. However, if his opponent wanted to continue to court death, how could he not agree? As mentioned earlier, Kim Roman wasn't a kind man. Black Wolf's life was like an ant's life in his eyes. Kim Roman obviously had the intention to kill. This time, Kim Roman used his strongest move, the Sword of Extinction. This move was enough to kill a peak cyan-grade Great Emperor. Seeing Kim Roman use this move, everyone knew that Black Wolf was dead meat. But what about Black Wolf? Longao didn't back down. Instead, he rushed forward. This time, Longao was prepared to finish him in one move. After all, his opponent was too strong. If he was a martial artist, it would be hard for him to win. However, in terms of the way of the sword, in just a few minutes of battle, Longao was no longer the same as before. Deity Slaying Sword. At this moment, Longao still chose to use the Deity Slaying Sword and the Emperor Dragon's 9 kills. Although the Deity Slaying Sword was sealed, it had already refined the 9-headed Emperor Dragon. Just the Deity Slaying Sword itself was already very powerful. Moreover, it was combined with the Emperor Dragon's 9 kills. Longao gathered all his strength into his hands and raised the God Slaying Sword in his hand. Following the momentum, a dragon roar sounded. 9 dragon roars, 9 sword chi, layer upon layer. The difference between using the finger as the sword and the God-slaying sword was too great. Kim Roman, who had never let his guard down, was careless at this moment. It was because of this that Longao had a rare opportunity. Chapter 1003. Boom. The sword chi collided. Before anyone could react, Kim Roman had already been swallowed by the sword chi. Ah! Everyone was dumbfounded because no one had imagined that Kim Roman, who had the upper hand just now, would suddenly be overtaken by Black Wolf. It was still unknown whether Kim Roman was dead or alive. Black Wolf, do you think you've already won? Kim Roman, who was swallowed by the sword chi, suddenly spread his voice throughout the square. Hearing Kim Roman's domineering words, the crowd was in an uproar. Longao was also shocked. He had always thought that once he used the God-punishing sword and the Emperor Dragon's 9 killing blow, even if he couldn't kill Kim Roman, he would at least be able to defeat him. But what was the result? The sword chi disappeared, and Kim Roman appeared. He sneered and said, "Black Wolf, I have to admit that you're very powerful. If we were at the same level, I wouldn't be your opponent." Kim Roman's words shocked everyone. Kim Roman's meaning was very clear. If the two of them were both Cyan Great Emperor martial artists, Black Wolf would definitely win and he would lose. But there was no what if. Black Wolf was still a Green Great Emperor martial artist, not a Cyan Great Emperor martial artist. Black Wolf, take my strongest sword. If you can survive, you'll win this battle. Strongest sword? Longao's face was also a little solemn because he didn't expect that Kim Roman hadn't used his strongest move at this point. Longao didn't say anything and prepared with all his strength because Kim Roman had already said that this was his strongest move. It was obvious what this sword meant. Everyone around the sword discourse arena held their breaths because no one thought that Black Wolf could force Kim Roman to this point. Even if Black Wolf lost, it would be a glorious defeat. What should he do? Although Longao's perception of the sword Dao was no longer the same as before, there was still a gap between him and Kim Roman. Would he be able to block this sword? He would fight to survive in the face of death. After thinking about it, Longao decided to take a risk. He would not use the Godslayer sword. He would use himself as a sword to take on Kim Roman's strongest attack head-on. Whoosh! Without any warning, Kim Roman did not seem to have the slightest bit of preparation. He directly backhanded his sword. It seemed like a casual strike, but all the swordsmen in the surroundings paled in fright. Any swordsman could clearly sense just how terrifying Kim Roman's strike was. Would he be able to withstand it? Everyone was asking themselves the same question in their hearts. The sword in Longao's hand had already disappeared. Could it be that Black Wolf wanted to use his body to resist the sword chi? Seeing that the sword in Black Wolf's hand had already disappeared, everyone was in a daze. In this battle, there were too many variables. Even if Black Wolf was very strong, if he wanted to rely on his body's defense to resist the sword chi, he would only die. Furthermore, the difference in cultivation level between Black Wolf and Kim Roman was obvious. As the sword chi came towards him, Longao's expression became extremely serious. He did not dodge at all, nor did he resist at all. Just like that, in the instant that everyone cried out in alarm, Black Wolf's body was engulfed by the sword chi. This scene, not to mention the others, even Kim Roman was a little dumbfounded. Could it be that Black Wolf was courting death? It was unlikely. Black Wolf's sudden move made Kim Roman feel a little uncomfortable. Could it be that this person had some trump card? Everyone, including Kim Roman, looked at Black Wolf, who had already been engulfed by the sword chi. They wanted to see if Black Wolf could survive such a terrifying sword chi. The result was actually predetermined, but Black Wolf's move made everyone somewhat expectant. Inside the sword chi, Longao, who had been engulfed, seemed to have entered a very strange world at this time. In this strange world, there were countless sword chi evolving, as if it was the origin of sword principle. Epiphany. Epiphany of sword principle. Longao had never thought that he would be able to enter an epiphany of sword principle. He just wanted to find a way out from the jaws of death to see if a miracle would happen. Longao naturally knew what an epiphany of the sword principle meant. The epiphany of the sword principle was a realm that every sword Dao warrior dreamed of entering. Even the sword sect master, Emperor Ken, and Murong Guenar could not resist such a temptation. Longao did not waste any of his epiphany of the sword principle, and immediately sensed the proliferation of the sword chi around him. On the sword discourse arena, the sword chi had already disappeared. Looking at the Black Wolf, who had his eyes closed and was unknown whether he was alive or dead, many people were extremely curious. They did not know what was going on with the Black Wolf at this moment. However, some powerful swordsmen, including Kim Roman, knew very well what the Black Wolf was doing at this moment. Epiphany of the sword principle? Was that possible? Countless swordsmen wanted the epiphany of the sword principle. For this, they worked hard every day, hoping that luck would favor them. But what about the Black Wolf? He actually entered an epiphany of sword principle in the middle of a battle. If they did not see it with their own eyes, they would not have believed it even if they were beaten to death. Everyone was dumbfounded because they had never heard of anyone entering an epiphany of sword principle in the middle of a battle. If that was the case, then the Black Wolf's luck was simply too good. It was a little shocking. It would be a lie to say that they were not envious, jealous, and hateful. Die. Kim Roman was also envious, jealous, and hateful because he knew very well that the Black Wolf's cultivation was only at the green-grade Great Sovereign Realm. However, his overall strength was comparable to his. Moreover, he had the epiphany of sword principle in the middle of a battle. If he waited for the Black Wolf to complete his epiphany and increase his cultivation, would he still be a match for the Black Wolf? Kim Roman did not have the slightest confidence. After all, the other party's talent and strength were there for all to see. Everyone was like that, and Kim Roman was no exception. Precisely because of this, Kim Roman made up his mind to kill and rushed out. He suddenly slashed out with his sword. Under normal circumstances, Kim Roman's sword was enough to split the Black Wolf into 5 pieces. But at this moment, the sword chi slashed on Longao's body and directly rebounded. Its power increased by 3 times. Kim Roman was frightened and quickly dodged. Even so, he was still almost killed by the sword chi. Things had already reached this stage. Would Kim Roman still dare to continue attacking the Black Wolf? Without a doubt. Staring at the young man in front of him, Kim Roman was finally afraid and did not dare to act rashly. Not only him, even the people around the sword discourse arena were a little dumbfounded. Because of the sudden epiphany of Black Wolf and the fact that he ignored Kim Roman's sword chi attack, no one knew what had happened. He was a little too strong. Such a person was really terrifying. The people of the Kim family were also staring at the Black Wolf. In this battle, although the victor between the Black Wolf and Kim Roman had yet to be decided, in everyone's heart, the Black Wolf had already won and Kim Roman had lost. Chapter 1004. Sword Dao Epiphany. Longao looked at the sword chi that was multiplying around him. Gradually, Longao also multiplied along with the sword energy, and started to slowly multiply. Time passed by slowly. In the blink of an eye, dozens of minutes had passed. Sword Dao Epiphany, even if it was only for dozens of minutes, was comparable to dozens of years of cultivation for other Sword Dao warriors. This was the power of Sword Dao Epiphany. Suddenly, he opened his eyes. With this Sword Dao Epiphany, Longao's cultivation base did not successfully break through from the green-grade Great Emperor realm to the cyan-grade Great Emperor realm. However, Longao's Sword Dao Epiphany allowed him to take a huge step forward on the path of Sword Dao. It could be said that it was a leap. At this moment, Longao stood on the sword discourse arena like a sharp sword piercing through the 9 heavens. Kim Roman, take my sword. Take my sword. Longao's voice was incomparably domineering. Without knowing why, Kim Roman, who was full of confidence earlier, suddenly flinched at this moment, as if he was no longer a match for his opponent. Even if there were 10,000 doubts in his heart, he did not know why he had a feeling that Black Wolf was completely different at this moment. Around the sword discourse arena, everyone held their breaths and stared at Black Wolf. Because everyone knew that Black Wolf, who had gone through Sword Dao Epiphany, was definitely different. Sometimes, once a Sword Dao warrior had a strong understanding of Sword Dao, he could even make up for the difference in cultivation base. It was not impossible for him to kill someone of a higher cultivation base. This was Sword Dao. Could it be that Black Wolf could really kill Kim Roman? Longao slowly raised his right hand and swung it. An invisible sword chi quickly shot out. This sword was like a meteor from the 9 heavens. It instantly streaked across the space and headed towards Kim Roman. What a terrifying sword chi. Not daring to be careless, Kim Roman also slashed out with his strongest sword. When the 2 sword chis collided, there wasn't the slightest fluctuation of aura. However, in the next second, Kim Roman's body was already standing motionless. Blood was flowing out of his 7 orifices, and his body was on the verge of collapse. If he hadn't forcefully withstood it, Kim Roman would have already fallen. You've already lost. I lost. Was he going to lose just like that? Looking at Black Wolf in front of him, Kim Roman didn't want to admit defeat. But the truth was right in front of him. Even if he didn't want to admit it, he had to. He had lost. In the end, he still lost. If he had been defeated by a blue-grade Great Emperor swordsman, it would have been fine. However, he had been defeated by a green-grade Great Emperor swordsman. Kim Roman even had the thought of dying. Black Wolf, I really want to know if your sword chi was comprehended from the enlightenment of the Sword Dao? Nodding his head. Longao didn't hide anything. Because he had just comprehended the Sword Dao and countless people had seen it. If he were to hide it, people would definitely say that he was faking it. As expected, Black Wolf, I have to admit that I really envy you. The enlightenment of the Sword Dao is something that all warriors dream of. I didn't expect that you would be able to comprehend the Sword Dao in the middle of a battle. If there's no accident, You'll go very far on the path of the sword Dao in the future. Kim Roman's evaluation was very high, but no one refuted it. After all, to be able to comprehend the sword Dao in the middle of a battle, one could imagine how terrifying his attainment in the sword Dao was. Goodbye. Goodbye. Longao more or less admired Kim Roman. Because Kim Roman's persistence in the sword Dao was something that many people couldn't achieve. Moreover, Kim Roman had just fought with him and entered the state without any disdain or contempt. Just this point alone was worthy of respect. But at this moment, a figure flashed by and stopped Kim Roman, who was about to leave. Cousin brother, why are you here? Cousin brother? Looking at the sudden appearance of this figure, everyone took in a deep breath. This man was Kim Roman's cousin brother, Golden One. He was also one of the guardians of the Kim family, a blue-level great emperor. His understanding of the sword Dao was even higher than Kim Roman's. HMPH, trash. Cousin brother, I've already lost. Kim Roman naturally knew the purpose of his cousin brother's visit. He was embarrassed. After all, he had lost to the other party in this battle. But now, his cousin brother's appearance seemed to be telling everyone that he and his family couldn't afford to lose. Boo-hoo-hoo, everyone had already guessed the reason for the sudden appearance of Golden One. He couldn't afford to lose. Everyone began to boo and despise the Golden One. No matter what, Black Wolf had already won. If the Golden One was like this, it would be a little too shameless. Ignoring everyone around the sword discourse arena, the Golden One looked at the young man in front of him and said coldly, "Where did you come from, you be **starred? This is Kensi. Actually, a wild kid like you can come in as you wish." The Golden One had just arrived and immediately went berserk, not giving the other party any face. But everyone's disdain for him grew stronger. They had seen shameless people before, but they had never seen such a shameless person. The Golden One was shameless to the extreme. But the Golden One still chose to ignore him, as if he was shameless. Such a person caused everyone around to be helpless. Even some of the disciples of the Kim family felt ashamed. They lowered their heads, like children who had done something wrong. Who do you think you are? How dare you bark like a dog here? Get lost. If others respect me, I will respect them 10 times. But, if someone is shameless, Longao will not be merciless at all. As expected, hearing Black Wolf scolding, the Golden One was instantly enraged, but was stopped by Kim Roman. When the surrounding people heard that the Black Wolf actually dared to scold the Golden One, they all broke out in cold sweat for the Black Wolf. In this world, the strong would always be worshipped. The Black Wolf had just entered an epiphany in the way of the sword during the battle and defeated Kim Roman in one move. This had already conquered everyone, not to mention, the current Golden One was obviously a shameless person, causing many people to dislike him. However, Huang Jini was extremely excited. This was exactly what he wanted. He wanted to provoke the other party so that he could make a move. Otherwise, it would be inappropriate for him to make a move by force. Cousin, I've already said that I've lost. Let's leave this place. Jin Luowen felt that it was too embarrassing. He had already lost, so he didn't want to continue staying here. But now, his cousin clearly wanted to regain his face, but he really couldn't do such a shameless thing. The Golden One snorted and said coldly, "You have lost, but I have not. Black Wolf, I challenge you now. Do you dare to accept?" Everyone was almost certain that Black Wolf did not dare to accept the challenge. After all, the Golden One's strength was there for all to see. Even if Black Wolf had an epiphany, he would not be able to defeat a blue-grade Great Emperor. P.S. All 8 chapters have been updated today. I hope everyone will vote. Chapter 1005. Revenge. Everyone had already guessed the Golden One's intention. While cursing in their hearts, everyone was looking forward to seeing if Black Wolf would choose to accept the challenge. It was still the same sentence. In everyone's opinion, Black Wolf definitely did not dare to accept the challenge. Once he accepted the challenge, he would definitely die. Unless there was water in his head, no one would seek their own death. I accept the challenge. Just when everyone thought that Black Wolf would not accept the challenge, the words "I accept the challenge" instantly spread throughout the square. Black Wolf accepted the challenge? Looking at Black Wolf on the Sword Discourse platform, everyone was a little dumbfounded. Could it be that Black Wolf was so confident? After all, the Golden One was a genuine blue-grade great sovereign martial artist. Moreover, his attainments in Sword Dao were above Kim Roman's. On the Sword Discourse platform, Longao was like a sharp sword, standing quietly. His blood-red hair danced wantonly. His sturdy body was like a mountain. No matter if it was the wind or the rain, it could not move Longao's body. Everyone was moved by this. Ha ha ha, Black Wolf, I have to admire your courage. However, I can tell you clearly that trash like you will not leave here alive today. Shaking his head helplessly, Longao looked as if he did not put his opponent in his eyes at all. Take the initiative to attack. This battle was unavoidable, so he had to fight with all his strength. Longao was also very dignified. The man who had just appeared was a blue-grade great sovereign martial artist. He knew very well that it would be very difficult to defeat the opponent who had just appeared. However, Longao would not choose to give up. Longao directly integrated the sword chi that was produced during the enlightenment of Sword Dao into the God-punishing sword. Swoosh! Longao took a step forward and his entire body had already rushed out. Before he arrived, the God-punishing sword in his hand had already slashed out fiercely. The sword chi crisscrossed and a terrifying sword cry rang out. Black Wolf took the initiative to attack. Everyone swallowed their saliva fiercely. This world was too crazy. They thought that Hei Lang would choose to defend. After all, the difference between the two of them was very big. However, no one had ever thought that Hei Lang would do the opposite and choose to attack first. Courting death. Kim Roman had already left the Sword Discourse arena, but he did not leave. He had already decided that at the last moment, even if he had to risk falling out with his cousin, he would still save the Black Wolf. Although he was a little envious and jealous, overall, Kim Roman was a good person. From the beginning to the end, the Golden One did not take Longao seriously. What could a mere green-grade great emperor do even if he was enlightened? However, the Golden One was more or less afraid. Otherwise, he wouldn't have risked being despised by others to challenge the Black Wolf and kill the Black Wolf. If you cut the grass without removing the roots, it will grow again when the spring breeze blows. The Golden One's intention was very simple. He wanted to strangle the Black Wolf in the cradle. Longao had just comprehended the Sword Dao and multiplied Sword Chi. At this moment, his comprehension of the Sword Dao had skyrocketed by 10 times. Even if his cultivation did not have the slightest breakthrough, his strength of the Sword Dao had increased by 10 times. Longao's sword was abnormally terrifying. Even the Golden One did not dare to face it head-on. He fiercely dodged and followed up with another sword. The sword chi collided and both of them took 3 steps back. The Golden One's face was gloomy to the extreme. Because of the sword just now, he had clearly sensed that the opponent's strength was very terrifying. No wonder his cousin lost. Black Wolf's realm was not very high. He was only a green-grade great emperor. However, to be able to defeat his cousin in one move meant that Black Wolf's attainments in the Sword Dao had surpassed his cousin and could even contend with him. How terrifying it was. The Golden One knew very well that if the opponent's cultivation could break through the green-grade great emperor realm, or even the blue-grade great emperor realm, then even he might not be his opponent. That was exactly the case. Black Wolf must die. He must die. Thinking of this, the Golden One quickly attacked. The sword in his hand was unleashed one after another. Sword chi was everywhere. One had to admit that the Golden One's strength was really strong. Kim Roman could not be compared to him. Black Wolf, I will let you know how big the gap between you and me is. Nonsense. Longao was too lazy to talk nonsense with his opponent. He directly slashed with his sword and used his innate ability, Dragon Roar. Longao had already thought about it. This was the Sword Sect and not the Martial Artists Alliance. Even if his identity was exposed, it would not matter. Even if he was discovered by his enemies, He believed that no one would find trouble with him in the sword sect. Even if it was the Long family. The sword sect was one of the 10 great sects. Whether it was the foundation or the strength, it was obvious. Innate ability, dragon roar. As the dragon roar resounded, a giant dragon shadow suddenly appeared behind Longao. At this moment, the Golden One realized that the flow of space around him had changed. His body was actually locked. What happened? Everyone heard the dragon roar and saw the giant dragon shadow behind Black Wolf. They had already guessed the identity of Black Wolf. So he was a disciple of the Long family. However, even with that being the case, the crowd became even more astonished. They truly could not understand why a disciple of the Dragon Clan would have such a powerful comprehension of the way of the sword, even surpassing Jin Luowen's. Long family disciples also came and went in Kensi. After all, the sword sect and the Long family had a good relationship. Although there was usually some friction, it did not affect the relationship between the two families. Because of this, no one rejected the fact that Longao was a disciple of the Long family. Many people hoped that Black Wolf could counterattack in the battle between the two. After all, the Golden One was simply too shameless. He was so shameless that it was a little unbearable. The Golden One never expected that his opponent would use this move. Under normal circumstances, even if Longao used his innate ability, it would be impossible for him to kill the Golden One. But now, the Golden One was obviously surprised and surprised. Moreover, Longao took advantage of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Therefore, the Golden One was doomed. Longao did not hesitate at all. He did not show any mercy. The god-slaying sword in his hand slashed down. The sound of the sword rang out. It was like a meteor streaking across the sky, fiercely slashing towards the Golden One. This slash was enough to kill the Golden One. The Golden One knew this. Kim Roman also knew this. Everyone else also knew this. Black Wolf, you dare to kill me? F***ck, things have already come to this point and he still dares to do this. Longao was very suspicious. Is there something wrong with his brain? He ignored the Golden One. But at this moment, Longao's slash suddenly disappeared without a trace just as the sword chi was about to slash down. At this moment, a majestic voice sounded. Longao, that's enough. P.S. I reluctantly wrote another chapter. I will sleep in tomorrow. I hope everyone can vote. Thank you. Chapter 1006. Looking at the man who suddenly appeared, everyone except for Longao knelt on the ground. Golden One and Kim Roman were no exception. Emperor Ken, Sword Sect Master Murong Guenar had personally arrived. Seeing the master suddenly appear, everyone was completely shocked. In everyone's eyes, Emperor Ken was a high and mighty peerless figure who would almost never show his face. But at this moment, for the battle between Black Wolf and Golden One, the master had personally come. What had happened? Longao had never expected this, but since Murong Guenar had already spoken, he could only give up. Coming to Longao's side, Murong Guenar coldly looked at Golden One and said, "Your skills are inferior, yet you still dare to be impudent. I'll punish you to go back and face the wall to reflect on your mistakes." "Yes, master." Golden One did not dare to be impudent. He respectfully bowed and turned around to leave. In the blink of an eye, he had already disappeared without a trace. "You're not bad. You can enter the sword sect." Hearing Murong Guenar's words, Kim Roman was immediately overjoyed, because he knew very well what entering the sword sect meant. "Thank you, master." Murong Guenar waved his hand and disappeared with Longao. Until now, no one had reacted. They all stared blankly at the sword discourse arena, because just now, their master had actually appeared, and he had a good relationship with Black Wolf. This world was too crazy. Kensi. Emperor Ken's appearance and disappearance instantly spread throughout Kensi. Everyone who heard the news turned pale with fright, because no one knew why the master would personally come for a disciple of a Long family. Now that Black Wolf's identity had been made public, everyone already knew that Black Wolf was actually a disciple of a Long family. It was precisely because of this. Everyone began to speculate about Black Wolf's identity. They did not know what relationship this person had with the Master and why he could attract the Master to come here personally. As for the Golden One, as soon as he returned to the Kim family, he was severely punished and locked himself up to reflect on his mistakes. After all, this was the Master's order. Even if they were given 10,000 guts, they believed that no one would dare to disobey. Kensi, in a small pub. The location was very remote, and there were only a few people in the entire tavern. Longao and Murong Guenar sat in a small tavern by the window. There were only 2 pots of wine, a plate of peanuts, a plate of spiced beef, and a plate of chicken on the table. The 2 of them were like 2 old friends who had not seen each other for many years. If other people were to find out that the Sword Sect Master was drinking with Longao in a small tavern, they would probably be scared out of their wits. Longao, you really surprised me. Of course, Longao knew what Murong Guenar meant. Murong Master, it was just a fluke. Fluke. Hearing Longao's words, Murong Guenar smiled bitterly. The enlightenment of Sword Dao is something that all swordsmen dream of. However, this realm requires opportunity and luck. Even I have only had 20 epiphanies in my life. F***ck Longao cursed in his heart. Of course, he knew what it meant to have 20 epiphanies. No wonder Murong Guenar was so powerful. Just having 20 epiphanies of Sword Dao was enough to look down on the world. Longao, I've already seen your battle earlier. I believe that with your comprehension of the way of the sword, your gains this time will be great. I can almost guarantee that in less than 10 years, you will be able to reach the Nirvana stage. Was it true? 10 years would pass in the blink of an eye. Not to mention others, even Longao himself was not confident. After all, 10 years was too short for a martial artist. Murong Master, I still have a long way to go in terms of my enlightenment of Sword Dao. I hope that I can get your help. The Nirvana realm was the realm closest to the pinnacle of martial arts. If he could reach this realm, even though he couldn't contend against the heavenly Dao, he wouldn't be at the mercy of Shangguan Yi. As for Murong Guenar, as the Sword Sect Master, nicknamed Emperor Ken, he believed that no one in the world could compete with Murong Guenar's enlightenment of Sword Dao. However, Murong Guenar shook his head. His meaning was very clear. He rejected Longao. Longao, it's not that I don't want to help you, but with your talent and potential, walking your own Sword Dao is the best way. As for other people's Sword Dao, it will always belong to them. Do you understand? He nodded. Longao knew what Murong Guenar meant. Walking one's own Sword Dao was the best way. In the end, the Sword Dao and the Martial Dao were actually the same principle. Longao was very clear that if he wanted to walk on the Martial Dao of others, he would have directly chosen the Supreme Divine Dao inheritance. He believed that he would be able to achieve the Supreme Divine Dao position in 3 years at most. However, he did not do so. What was the reason? In the end, Longao also wanted to walk on his own Martial Dao. Even if the Supreme Divine Dao inheritance was placed in front of him, he had no choice. Longao, I believe you should know that if you want to speed up your enlightenment of Sword Dao, you must constantly fight. Therefore, I'm going to arrange for you to enter the Sword Sect and participate in the Sword Slaughter Mission. Sword Slaughter Mission? Murong Master, I want to ask, what is the Sword Slaughter Mission? It's very simple. In the back mountain of the Sword Sect, there is a spiritual beast forest. There are many powerful spiritual beasts in it. Every year, the Sword Sect will hold a Sword Slaughter Mission to select suitable disciples to enter. They will constantly fight, and life and death is at stake. If they can persevere, it will bring indescribable benefits to their comprehension of Sword Dao and the improvement of their strength. So it was like that. With such an opportunity, Longao naturally would not choose to give up. He nodded and said, "Thank you, Murong Master." Right, is Yang in the Sword Sect? Since Murong Guenar was the Sword Sect Master, which was also the Emperor Ken, then Murong Yang's identity was almost confirmed. As the daughter of the Sword Sect Master, it was easy to imagine Murong Yang's status in the Sword Sect. Yes, Yang talks about you every day. Longao, I only have one daughter. I hope that you will treat her well in the future and not disappoint me. Waving his hand, Murong did not give Longao any chance to speak. He stood up and said, "Let's go." Then, his body disappeared. Looking around at the small tavern, Longao was extremely depressed. This was because he already knew why Murong helped him so much. It turned out that he was treating him as his future son-in-law. This was a pain in the ass. Longao never thought that Murong would like him. If he had known earlier, he would have made things clear to Yang. Now, he was in big trouble. However, Longao still decided to find an opportunity to make things clear to Yang. Otherwise, this matter would only get more troublesome. Chapter 1007. Wanzhan School, one of the 10 great sects. In addition to practicing martial arts, Wanzhan School's students also practiced formations. It could be said that, in terms of strength, Wanzhan School was definitely at the bottom of the 10 great sects. That was because any random superpower could surpass Wanzhan School. Even so, no one dared to provoke Wanzhan School. The reason was simple. Although Wanzhan School's overall strength was not very strong, Wanzhan School was a force that specialized in formations. In Tianwu continent, a formation master was considered to be above a martial artist. That was because a powerful formation master could not only fight against 100 people, but could also kill enemies above their level. Wanzhan School, in the main hall. Master Lin Juanhong's expression was very ugly. That was because the 10,000 swords returned to origin had been broken by someone. Even if the power of the 10,000 swords returned to origin was less than 1/10,000th of the main formation, it was still a little embarrassing to have it broken by an outsider. Men, investigate this Heilang's background for me. Yes, Master. Lin Junhong, the master of Wanzhan School, was also one of the strongest martial artists in Tianwu continent. In terms of formations, he was a super existence. Many people who fought with Lin Junhong did not dare to give him enough time to set up formations. Otherwise, it would be very difficult for anyone in the world to be his opponent. That was the terrifying part of formations. Sword Sect Mountain, Sword Sect's headquarters. This time, Murong personally brought Longao into the Sword Sect Mountain and announced to the entire Sword Sect that from now on, Black Wolf was officially a consecrator of the Sword Sect. What was going on? For the master to announce it personally, it was easy to guess who the other party was. Everyone started to speculate about Black Wolf's background and strength. It didn't matter if they didn't ask around, but when they did, everyone was shocked. He was a green-grade great emperor and had just challenged Kim Roman in Kensi not long ago. If it wasn't for the appearance of the master, Black Wolf might not have been able to leave Kensi alive. Such a person could actually become a sect's consecrator. In the history of the Sword Sect, such a thing had never happened before. A green-grade great sovereign martial artist could actually become a consecrator. If this matter were to spread out, wouldn't it become a laughingstock? With regards to the sect master's decision, everyone expressed that their balls were aching. However, Murong Fengnian was still the Sword Sect's sect master. His strength and status were there. Even if some people were not convinced, they could only be angry and not say anything. Longao, you are already a consecrator of the Sword Sect. You have your own place to cultivate. Thank you very much, Murong Master. Nodding his head, Murong looked very amiable. He smiled and said, I still have something to do. I'll get someone to bring you to your cultivation place later. For now, you can take a look around. Before Longao could say anything, Murong had already disappeared. Take a look around. Longao shrugged his shoulders helplessly. Since the other party had already said so, Longao couldn't refuse. He could only take a look around. Longao was still looking forward to the Sword Sect. As one of the 10 great tripod, the Sword Sect's strength and foundation were needless to say. Moreover, the Sword Sect was the ancestor of the Sword Dao in the world. Who knows, he might encounter some opportunities. Long Fu, what can you sense? Longao was very clear about his senses. Therefore, he could only rely on Long Fu's senses and hope that he could find something. Before he entered the Martial Artists Alliance, Longao didn't have a chance to sense anything. Otherwise, as one of the 10 Great Tripod Martial Artists Alliance, Longao wouldn't have chosen to give it up so easily. That was indeed the case. This time, Longao wouldn't give up so easily after he entered the Dragon Sect. Master, there are indeed many places in the Sword Sect that are worthy of your visit. However, the Sword Sect is also filled with experts. If you casually go to these places, I'm afraid that you will be taken by the Sword Sect. Although Long Fu didn't finish his words, the meaning in his words was very clear. Longao wasn't a fool. Of course, he knew what Long Fu was referring to. Even if Murong Guenar was biased towards him, there were some things that even the master wouldn't be able to change once it happened. Longao, no matter what you want, you have to go to one place. Just as he was about to continue communicating with Long Fu, Longao suddenly heard Xiling's words. He was very surprised. He didn't know where Genling wanted him to go. After all, this was the Sword Sect. Xiling, where do you want to go? Sword Sect. Thinking about Xiling and Bai Ling's identities, Longao instantly understood what had happened. It seemed that he was too naive. He hadn't thought of this before. Longao, there is a forbidden area in the Sword Sect. There is a very mysterious power inside. If my sister and I can absorb it, even if we can't return to our peak state, we can at least recover half of it. Hearing Xiling's words, Longao became more and more curious. Xiling, if the Sword Sect has the power you need, why didn't you come to take it before? Why did you have to wait until now? The Sword Sect's forbidden area. Longao wasn't a fool. Of course, he wouldn't act rashly. If he was caught by the Sword Sect, wouldn't he be dead? Longao, I don't know if you're doing this on purpose. You know that both of us are seriously injured. If we came to the Sword Sect, wouldn't we just be swallowed up? Let me ask you now. Are you willing to help us? Longao was helpless to the extreme. Xiling was so domineering when asking for help. He was so overbearing. Now that things had reached this point, could he say no? Where? Follow me. Longao shrugged again helplessly. He could only follow Xiling's senses and walk towards the southwest of the Sword Sect. Long Fu didn't say anything from the beginning to the end. Because until now, the two Genling still didn't know of Long Fu's existence. Otherwise, who knew what would happen? Your Black Wolf. Longao, who was hurrying on his way, was suddenly stopped by a few people. Each of them was overbearing as if they were superior. Longao felt a headache coming on. There were 3 green-grade Great Emperors and 2 blue-grade Great Emperors. They were all disciples of the Sword Sect. Looking at the 5 people in front of him, Longao instantly guessed their purpose of stopping him. Thinking about it, it made sense. This time, he became a consecrator of the Sword Sect for no reason. He believed that many people wouldn't be convinced. No matter what, his strength was right there. Green-grade Great Emperors were nothing in the Sword Sect. Any random genius disciple would be above him. It was no wonder that these people wouldn't be convinced. Even so, Longao didn't have the slightest fear. So what if I am? So what if I'm not? Looking at the arrogant Black Wolf, the 5 of them didn't expect him to be so arrogant. The 5 of them were instantly enraged. However, due to the backing of the master, the 5 of them didn't immediately take action. Black Wolf, it seems like you're really arrogant. Do you know the conditions to become a consecrator? You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,